Alrighty, welcome everybody. No fancy dancy music today, or at least not for this particular stream. No special, super awesome, unusual graphics exactly. Well, I mean, there are super awesome special graphics that you're going to see in just a minute, but these are things that we are keeping for us because we are getting ready for to present this panel discussion, as we're calling it, this writing panel discussion called Crossing the 49th Canadian American Authors Talk Shop. So, welcome everybody. My name is Gregory Wilson. I'm usually known on this channel as Arvin Eleron, is my Twitch name. But for the purposes of this, I'm Gregory Wilson because Gregory Wilson is the author that is going to have a chance to speak with friends and colleagues and folks like that. And I am very excited to be able to welcome all of you here. Before I go any further, though, let me just remind everybody that if you like what you see on the channel tonight, and if you're like, this is cool, I wish that there was more stuff like this, I have good news for you. There is more stuff like that that you can do because we are a story-based channel. We do a lot of focus. We have a big focus on story and narrative here in games and other things. And so if this is up your alley and you like the discussions we have, please follow the channel, which you can do by clicking that button right there. Please spread the word. If you're seeing this on YouTube later, please make sure that you do that as well. And otherwise, thank you, everybody. I am excited for this discussion that we've got going on tonight about the state of publishing. Heaven help us. It's quite something, at least in North America. But before we do any of that, I am going to make sure that I move that and that and that. Okay, good. That's all ready to go, which means I am now going to bring the folks in. So I'm going to unmute myself and apologize for anyone I interrupted because I couldn't hear them, as I told them would be the case. And then I will unmute them. And last but not least, I will transition over to reveal. Oh my God, it worked. We are here. We are ready. We are prepared. And yes, it is my great pleasure to welcome everybody to Crossing the 49th Canadian American Authors Talk Publishing. And as you can clearly see, Valerie and I, representing the American side, will be on the left side of the screen, also known as the escaping from actual nations that are good. So we're just over here. And then the good nation, which is over there on the right side, that is, of course, Brandon Crilly and Premee Mohamed. So let me introduce each of these folks in turn. I do have a question to get us started, but then after that, this is going to be freewheeling. And I will say just quickly that the genesis of this comes a little bit out of a discussion that Brandon and I were having a few months ago about wanting to talk more about publishing, wanting to get more of our friends to be able to speak with us in discussions like this. And it also partially came a little bit, in my mind, from a discussion that I had with Premee at CanCon, which is an amazing convention you should all go to in Ottawa, in which I kept hearing the term grants coming from all the Canadian authors, something that Valerie and I have no knowledge of whatsoever in the American world. So really, I was like, this thing you say that's called grants. Anyway, I was curious to hear more of that, and of course, that doesn't mean that things have been any easier because of publishing in general, but we'll get to that. So that's the genesis of this idea. But before we actually get into our discussion, I guess let me move to I'll move directly below me, just on the screen as you're looking, to the other American author in this discussion, and that, of course, is Valerie Valdes. Valerie, it's good to see you. For those who don't know you, could you talk a little bit about yourself and about your, let's say, most recent publishing endeavor, maybe that people would know?
Trilogy, the space fantasy novel Where Peace is Lost, and the recently released fantasy rom-com Which You Would, which is my most recent publishing experience. And so I also stream on Twitch. The kids are asleep every night, pretty much play video games, lots of fun. And I am co-editor of Escape Pod, your weekly science fiction podcast, which Premi used to edit with me. But yeah, so my recent publishing experience is this one, Which You Would, in which I am publishing under a pen name because it is a new genre for me. So that's one of the interesting little quirks of publishing that we could talk about, or not, as the case may be. The idea that when you transition to an entirely different genre, as romance essentially is, as opposed to science fiction, fantasy, which have a lot more crossover, um, you may want to end up basically relaunching as a debut with an entirely different name, because it allows you access to sort of like the debut cred and marketing engine, as well as giving you a little distance from your other books, which may be an entirely different thing from what you were writing before.
Which then, and then eventually, if all goes well, you just link up again, a la Stephen King, Richard Bachman style or whatever, right? And then it's all unified. And but what's interesting, just before we get to Brandon and Premee, is that you don't have to sort of keep that. I mean, like you're letting us know in public, like this is happening. It's with another name, right? So
It's not a secret.
it's not a secret. Yeah. So that's interesting because you still get the debut cred, but you can be like writing under this name, this,
Yep.
this, and this. So that's
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yes, branding, exactly, Triffin. Absolutely. Incidentally, we are, of course, joined by a number of esteemed folks in chat, and I'm sure we'll see more that we know. But I do want to call out both Triffid and Prince Justin, who do book reviews and have done amazing book reviews on many occasions and are experts at editing, writing, reviewing, and stuff like that. So anyway, they know of which they speak to. It is a pleasure to have Valerie with us. Valerie's been on many, many times in various ways on the channel, so I'm glad to have Valerie back. I am also glad as we move over to that side. I guess this black line in the middle is the 49th, I guess, like for the equivalent of this. So like over there in a much better country is it's been a rough. It's a hard one for right now, folks. It really is for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, is Brandon Crilly. Brandon, it is good to see you.
Good to see you.
How is, so again, welcome. How is life for you and everything like that? And please tell the folks who don't know you already, although, of course, you've also been on this channel many times, who you are and a little bit about your own most recent publishing history.
Perfect. Yeah, so as Greg said, I'm Brandon Crilly in the blighted, cold as hell, wintry landscape of Ottawa, Canada, where everything is popsicles and cold all the time. But it is lovely here. It was funny, but when I was talking about this panel on Blue Sky a little while ago, somebody replied and was like something about like Canadian versus American authors, and people hung on to the word like the verses in there. It's like, no, we're not fighting. No, we're collaborating. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine. But yeah, so I'm a science fiction and fantasy. What's that, Premee?
Just noticing Valerie reaching for the large weapon behind her.
No, we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want that.
Yeah, no.
I can't fight.
It's not versus. It's more like Godzilla X Kong.
Yes.
It's not really Godzilla versus Kong.
That's it. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm a science fiction and fantasy author. Ton of short fiction out there, and 2 novels so far, which I'll talk about in a second. As well as a games writer and game designer, and I've worked on things like the Expanse RPG and Shadowrun and a bunch of other stuff. And so we can talk a little bit about that and kind of the freelancing side and the publishing side in that vein. But on the book side, my most recent publishing experience is Cast Off, which I was smart today and I have it right beside me. Which came out just a little over a month ago. Finished off my aspects of Ailda duology with Athos Arts, small press in Michigan. And so that my most recent publishing experience is that. But I'm also in the position of having very recently signed with a literary agent in September. So now we're starting kind of the motion of like, similar to, I guess, having a debut, like the motion of that aspect of what I hope will be the next branch of my writing career. Mm-hmm. And my agent happens to be in New York, as many agents are. So we can talk about that a little bit as well.
Good stuff, Brandon. Yes, I'm excited to have Brandon back on as always to talk about stuff too. And finally, yet another person who's been on this channel in another capacity, but is on today in the writing capacity. And that is recently yet again award-winning, let me just say, multiple award-winning, Premee Mohamed. Premee, it's good to see you. Welcome back to North America from your recent trip. So yeah, maybe same thing for those who do not yet know you. Maybe talk a little bit about who you are in a writing sense, I guess, and also like the most recent. I know you have a lot of things, but most recent publishing thing you got.
Most recent, okay. So my name is Premee Mohamed. My pronouns are she, her. I am based even further northly and coldly than Brandon. I am at latitude 53 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It's very cold here. I'm very sad most of the year because I am a delicate tropical flower. That's the other important thing that I often leave out of my bio. I was educated as a scientist. I'm now unemployed, or as some would call it, a full-time writer. And I write sci-fi, fantasy, horror, novels, novellas, a lot of short fiction. I just had a flash piece come out in Three Lobed Burning Eye, which was part of their crowdfunding rewards. And my most recent book that came out was this one, which is The First Thousand Trees with ECW Press, which is based out of Toronto. And today also the audio version of one of my books with an American publisher just came out. So the Butcher of the Forest audiobook just
nice,
came
today.
out
Cool.
today. So that's super exciting. And yeah, like Brandon, I am Canadian. My agent is American, and my debut novel was with a UK publisher, and I've also published with American and Canadian presses, and also most recently had translations with Catalan, Spanish, Italian, and French. So yeah, I guess the moral of the story is that living in Edmonton does not actually stop you from pursuing your publishing dreams, I guess.
Yeah, maybe we should. Everyone should move to Edmonton. Maybe that's the secret.
Maybe that's
sauce.
the key.
I mean, let's make a list. No disrespect to Edmonton. Let's make a list maybe, and then we'll have some options.
See how that
We
goes.
might need some sort of study about cause and effect, though. So.
Nonsense. I think they're completely related. But it's good to have Premee here and everybody here. I will say quickly again for those who, again, you could see my logo up there for when I'm on the channel is Arvin Eleron, but my real name is Gregory A. Wilson. That's the name I write under. And so I, like Brandon, have a series through Athos Arts, the last book of which came out last year called Heretic. And these 3 books, the Grey Assassin Trilogy, Grey Shade, Renegade, and Heretic are also coming out in audio form. Grey Shade's already out in audio form, but Renegade is currently in QC and should be posted on Audible and available elsewhere within the next week, I would think. And then Heretic will be there early next year. Trent did a wonderful job of this. Trent is a great voice narrator, and I'm actually audiobook narrator, and I'm kind of like, we were chatting about, like, we got to get you an award, man. Like, he's really good. He does the Shadowrun and Battletech books too. And I also have been published by Canadian, specifically the Ed Greenwood Group, and American publishers. However, I have not yet been able to, I'm still working on getting, a number of more publishers. There've been other publishers in the past, but outside of America, so the whole Catalan thing and all that is pretty nice. Getting someday a Spain one, we'll see. After World One, WorldCon, everyone wants to move to Edmonton. Yeah, I mean, I imagine that's what will happen. I can't imagine why not. All right, well, so let's throw out one question to start with. In chat, just so you know, we're going to go for a little while here, and at a certain point, we will open up for questions from folks in chat too. But otherwise, we want to have kind of a little bit of a freewheeling conversation, and I have just a couple of questions to throw out there, which I think will be probably all that we need. But I want to start, I guess, by asking a little bit about where we think the state of publishing, and I'm specifically thinking about sort of North American publishing, is in genre right now for SFF, because obviously there is a general sense that everything is perpetually a disaster in publishing, and I that's probably somewhat true, but not entirely, and it obviously varies greatly depending on what your definition, I suppose, of success is, right? Like, if it's just about getting published, there are a number of good, reputable small presses that exist, although they also struggle, and obviously the large publishers are perpetually being sort of eating each other and getting fewer and fewer, and so there's a problem up top. But I guess I want to see, first of all, from all of our perspectives, what our sense is from each side of the border about what North American publishing is like. And I don't know who wants to take that first, but what are our feelings generally about genre publishing in North America right now? Like, where do we think we're at?
I mean, I'll jump in there first.
Sure.
I think one of the things, the state of publishing in North America, I think one of the things that is still incredibly important, and I can't see changing anytime soon, and I know gets discussed up here among my Canadian peers quite a bit, is the ongoing power and influence and shadow of the United States. Like, when we talk about North American publishing, really we still just mean the United States.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, right? Like, like there are more, like, especially in SFF, there are more Canadian small presses now than there were Actually, maybe not. I was going to say that there were pre-COVID, but I think we lost a few and then we gained a few. So I think maybe we just broke even. Like they still exist, and they're doing phenomenal work. Like I'm thinking of folks like Stellaform, which is also based out of Ontario, and Walsick and Wynn, who were a literary press for a long time, and they just recently started an SFF imprint, and they're doing very cool stuff. ECW is obviously still around. Although they're not small press; they're at least mid list. Um, but but again, like they're few and far between compared to what's happening, compared to the number of publishers that you see in the United States. And so I think what we're still dealing with is like the huge monolith that is the United States. And with even with all the you know chaos generally, to put it mildly, like to me, I don't think that's going anywhere. Um, Despite various dysfunctions and stuff. So that's the thing that I always come back to, is that sort of monolith that still exists.
Okay, that's fair. Premee, you have a sense of like, is that sort of confirm your sense of it? I mean, like, is there a U.S. monolith that, from a publishing point of view, that has to be dealt with?
I do kind of think so. And I definitely hear what Brandon's saying. Like we have some small presses. The way a lot of our small presses survive up here is by getting government grants.
Yeah.
There's that word again.
Yeah, there's that word again. I'm thinking about it a lot because I have been a grant assessor for the Canada Council for the Arts, which is one of the big ones that gives out a lot of money every year. And I'm acting as a grant assessor shortly because I've been invited to participate again.
Okay.
And I'm always just thinking, though, kind of the constraints and the hoops that people have to jump through if they are a press and they want to keep their grant money. And I don't have a really good sense of whether that constrains what they end up acquiring and publishing, and whether small presses that want to grab books that are a little bit more risky or a little bit more out of the box, do they get that sweet can-lit money, which has traditionally not smiled kindly upon, I guess, what we would call genre books. Sometimes there is money for speculative fiction. The can-lit grant people are very, very fussy about the division between those two. There is some literary snobbery going on. And so my kind of evaluation of the state of publishing is, yes, chaos. But I think sort of the overall impression from Brandon there is correct, and I don't think that there's been much of a shift towards anything really negative or positive, just a shift towards chaos and kind of away from the world we knew.
Interesting. Valerie, what do you think about this regarding, like, I'm going to come back to that grants thing in a minute, because just the word is nice to say. Just Chad, just think about, like, if you say grant, like if I put on my grants, see, like if you have an echo, like it has even greater. I just, my God, I no. But leaving that aside, I guess because it's true that there is this sort of monolith, but then there is also the sense that we have 6 quadrillion people. It feels like it's not actually that number, but that we're competing against sort of on a regular basis to get out there. So I don't know, Valerie, what do you think? Because you've been on the sort of bigger and smaller press side in terms of what's published you. So do you have a sense of the sort of where things stand as far as growth in small presses, big presses, like in the south of the border? Like, where are we at on the American side as far as genres are concerned, do you think?
Yeah, I think that the big thing is romantasy, and it's not looking like that is going to change necessarily
Yeah.
in the near future. I know there are people who think, oh, it's a bubble, and it's gonna shift at some point, but romance really is a very big genre, and I'm not going to pretend that it is carrying publishing, because I don't think that's necessarily true either. But in terms of speculative fiction, I think that it is bringing in some readers from romance who maybe were not reading speculative fiction as much before,
Yeah.
or who were reading very specific kinds of it. It's sort of adding an extra door to the tent, I guess, or something. I don't know, because I don't know that the tent's getting bigger necessarily, but more people are coming in, perhaps, and we're seeing imprints that are being added for that purpose. I'm thinking like Bramble, for example,
Yeah.
which is publishing romantic speculative fiction, kind of across the board, sci-fi, fantasy, and I think horror as well. And I think cozy horror and cozy horror romance are also having a moment right now, which is interesting to consider. So I think that publishing is definitely um, doing stuff. It's definitely not the stuff that it was doing before. I think that I saw a report recently that science fiction specifically is seeing a decrease in market share.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, yeah. And so it does seem like, what are people interested in reading, and what are publishers interested in publishing? Publishing as a rule seems like it tends to be very risk averse, especially the bigger that you get. The smaller presses are able to do more stuff. I'm thinking of folks like Neon Hemlock, for example,
Sure.
that they're able to be more selective in a way that the editors can kind of push their vision, I think. Whereas when you're talking about the big four, they may have to, they have their vision. I'm not trying to undermine what the editorial stuff is there, but they have to take it all to acquisitions. And then the acquisitions people crunch numbers and spit out a receipt the size of a CVS receipt, and then you read it, and it's like a horrifying decree on the state of your future potential career viability. And it's different. It hits different. But yeah, there's definitely small presses that are taking advantage of, print on demand options or smaller print run options. Crowdfunding is a big
Yeah.
thing that is going on there
Mhm.
too. So there are ways and means, and people are doing what they can.
Mhm.
But it still is, I mean, business is up, but are authors getting paid more? No.
Yeah. Can I popcorn off that really quick, Greg, before
Yeah,
you
no,
sort
yeah,
of
absolutely. No, that's please.
because like but first of all, I love the shout out to Neon Hemlock because they do absolutely incredible stuff. But you're saying about romantasy, like interestingly, the book that landed me and my writing partner, it's a co-written novel, landed us our agent, is fantasy romance. That's the thing that finally got us in. Um, and we're thinking, right, we haven't settled on it yet, but we're thinking of marketing it as multiverse romance specifically, is the what we're gonna call it. But the two of us and our agent all agree, like we were very clear on this, and our agent was hip to it, to specifically not market it as romantasy. Like, nothing against romantasy, but like, there's what romantasy appears to be doing, and then there's what we're doing in our book, and we're like, it's a little different. We're going to try to fill a different need. And so I think you're absolutely right about the circuit, the extra entrance at the back of the circus tent sort of thing. But like, but I think I'm curious to see if we're already now in like the response to romantasy sort of swing of it, and kind of see what happens from that. And that's, I mean, someone out there is going to correct me, but again, I think I'm seeing that response, and that level of kind of that romance rating happening more from American publishers than I'm seeing from Canadian SFF publishers. I may be wrong in that, but it may just be that hasn't crossed my desk. But I don't know. I think we're a little slower on the uptake, or a little slower to grab onto that over here, I think.
That's interesting. I mean, like I was thinking about the fact I just got done teaching This Is How You Lose the Time War
Oh
in
yeah.
my science fiction class, which is 2017, I think, 2018, something like that. And I mean, it is clearly on some level a romance, like and you wouldn't define it as romantasy. It's arguably science fiction, so it's romance fiction, like romance sci fiction. But the point is that the reason I bring this up is that these are marketing terms, right? And they're marketing terms that at a certain point hit, and people say this is what it is, and so I now define it as this. So we get, this is lit RPG, and lit RPG looks like this, and this is romantasy, and this is what. But again, that's sort of like the domination of the marketers that are, like you were talking about, Valerie, that sort of make decisions about what we actually want to classify these things as. And God help us if we're doing anything that's slipstream, right? And we don't know what the heck it is. So I guess I'm wondering a little bit about that from a Canadian versus American or Canadian separate from American point of view. Like, is Canada as dominated by the sort of the labels like it feels to me like American publishing is in genre? Like, I don't, because I just get, I don't know, there seems to be so much, like, at least in the larger presses, maybe the smaller presses move away from this somehow, but still there is a sense to me of trying to move people into a label one way or the other. And if not, starting with a new name so you can be in that new genre, a la a certain person who just spoke about this earlier. Is that happening in Canada the same way, about, labels at all costs? Has Canadian publishing moved towards that? Or I guess if you're looking at American publishing, have they said to Canadian authors, listen, you also need to be aware of what fits the American market, and that's this particular label? Like, and that's for Brandon or Premee. I don't know what you think about the labeling part of things.
I mostly just have I guess, like, anecdata about that.
Okay.
So, for the annual Migration of Cloud series, of which this is the third book, when that first book came out in 2021, I thought it was pretty clear that because it was set like 90 years in the future and had a disease that was A, made up, and B, had changed all of society in kind of a structural way, that was sci-fi, and you could file it under sci-fi. And ECW's response was basically, no offense, but this is the first genre book really that we're publishing. We mostly publish nonfiction, and we publish litfic or canlit. So you can't write genre because that's not something we publish. And I was like, so that's been marketed as climate fiction or at best speculative fiction, and they keep sending me to events where there are no other genre authors and where they talk crap about genre the entire time in front of me
Margaret
because
Atwood
I
is in the
haven't
back
said
of the room,
anything.
you mean? No, I'm sorry.
Margaret Atwood's in the back of the room.
I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry to Margaret Atwood.
She's like in the city right now, actually. I think she's
Really?
giving a talk like tomorrow or something here at the Edmonton Public Library.
But not genre talk. No, I'm just
It's not genre talk. I don't know.
Joking.
But like the labeling, that was kind of my first experience with that, because
yeah.
that book was acquired after my debut, which was a sci-fi fantasy horror and marketed by Solaris, mostly as horror, I guess. So that one, there was a box and they kind of put it in the box. And this one, they were like, we're going to stuff this into the box, but then people who read sci-fi are not going to know to find it there. But people who mostly read, litfic, they might expand their box a little bit to include your book. And again, it was acquired in 2019, so I was like, okay, flip my little pigtails or whatever, because my debut novel hadn't even come out yet. That didn't come out till 2020. But since then, I have seen that a lot. Just as an example, we have a press here, New West, which has been running since I think like 1975 or something. So, for Canada, that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a very venerable press. They just decided to open up a spec fic imprint, Barber Press, and they solicited me for a novella, which, thank you very much. I'm passing that through my agent right now because his opinion is something like, if I stretch myself too thin, I will die, which I don't think that's possible. But he says, please stop burning the candle at three ends. I didn't know that was possible until I met you. But, what they are looking for is not what I think we who move more in the traditional or historical genre space would call genre, actually. A lot of it is like, they're looking for fabulism or surrealism. They're looking for magical realism.
Yeah.
They're looking for anti-realism. They're looking for contemporary realism with a single speculative or science fictional element. They don't really want fantasy or sci-fi. So it's weird to me that they have opened up this fantasy and sci-fi imprint and they're not calling it that, and that's not what they're trying to acquire.
Wow.
So when it comes to the labels, off the top of my head, I can't think of that many Canadian presses who bill themselves as a genre press. Stellaform comes to mind, as Brandon was saying. Wordweaver, maybe. Like, who else though? Right?
Yeah, because I like I mentioned Wall Second Wind, but it's not like they just started their imprint,
Mm-hmm.
and even that, and I think they also even that imprint leans a little literary. I didn't even know about New West. I think part of the problem is that like the publicizing it is like even within Canada is difficult. Like we don't
Yeah.
this thing pops up and we don't hear about it.
Well, and like the presses we know about in Canada are things like, HarperCollins Canada,
Yeah,
Penguin
exactly.
Random
Yeah.
House Canada.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a Canadian press. Like, if we have to think of Canadian presses off the top of our head, we often can't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's 1950s
so
branch
maybe
plants
that's part of the
still.
problem as well.
Yeah.
Is not just that we don't have spec-fic imprints, is that we don't know about them. There may be a zillion out there. There could be one right behind me.
Wondering right now. I'm waiting for someone in chat to be like, I am a spec for I'm Spartacus.
exactly.
I'm a spec fic imprint. Valerie, what am I overstating the label thing? At least from an American point of view, as far as American publishing does desperately want to put people in, go to this spot on the shelf, do this thing, you write this, so go to that. Like, am I overstating that, or is that still a thing? I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but
I think it's still a thing. I think that marketing and publicity are well-oiled machines, and whether or not they function as we may want them to, or as maybe most efficient or good in the market, they are still well-oiled and they are still machines. I mean, you can conceive of them as perhaps something like the 1970s computer that's still running the extremely crucial software at your bank or whatever, but they are nonetheless doing the thing that they are designed to do, and they're doing it as best they can on shoestring budgets, frankly, a lot of the time, unfortunately, and extraordinarily overworked and underpaid people, many of them interns potentially trying to get a foot in the publishing industry. And so they are going to, for good reason, naturally gravitate towards, wanting to be able to put the round peg in the square hole, and then put the triangle peg in the square hole, and then put the rectangle peg in the square hole. And you're like, I hate that you're doing this. Why are you doing this? But they're doing it because they know what will sell, often directly to like booksellers is the thing too.
right.
Is that it's not just a question of selling to consumers, because selling direct to consumers in a way is a fool's errand, right? How do you even find them? How do you reach them? TikTok? Are we doing I know everyone cringes. Are we doing book talk? Are we doing bookstagram? Are we doing blog tours? Are we
Blog
doing
tours.
newsletter stuff? Like, do you have a street team? What the hell are you even doing? And honestly, they are throwing spaghetti at the wall at all times, because finding people where they are is much harder than selling a book to booksellers who are then going to hand sell those books to people who are going to put them cover facing out in their bookstores,
Yep.
who are going to order them in libraries. Canada, you could talk about libraries. Your library stuff is very different from our library stuff,
Yeah.
but we do get paid if libraries buy our books. And so that is a big thing. So being able to put put the round peg in the square hole can mean the difference between getting a book into libraries and that book just dying on the vine.
Yeah, and I think the thing you mentioned there, which is important, and then I want to acknowledge some stuff in chat. In particular, that's important, has to do with this idea of distribution, which is something we haven't talked about yet much. But like, this is part of the problem, right? Is that the sort of the library stuff, and my first novel way back in 2009 was largely, it was for 5 Star, which was an imprint of Gale Cengage, and a big part of their market was the library market. So it was getting purchased at a variety of these library systems across the country, which is great, which is, by the way, in case anyone saw the recent discourse over the last couple of days about a piracy site that I'm not going to repeat, that I had not heard of until 2 days ago. And I was like, that is sort of cowering under the label of a open source archive, which I'm like is, really unfair to the term of open source, and is certainly unfair to the term of library. An actual library is one where they actually bought the book in the first place. But this is the problem, right? Is the distribution networks. Like Brandon and I have our books commonly, our last few books commonly through a place that, Athos does good work. but distribution is very limited. And for most small presses, distribution is next to nil. It's a matter of, because you can say you can publish it on, it's available on Amazon, it's available in Barnes & Noble. But the problem, as I've talked about before, is if you make a hot dog stand, right, and you say, I have the best hot dog stand ever, and I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to set up my hot dog stand, and there are 8 million people in New York, and a lot of them like hot dogs. And so I put, just by sheer numbers, if 1%, 0.1% of 8 million, that's a huge amount of hot dogs. But the problem is you already have 70,000 plus hot dog stands in the city of New York that people already go to. So why are they going to go or even know that exists your particular hot dog stand, right? It has to show up somewhere for people to know that it's there and exists. And so the problem with having it like, oh, it's available on Amazon, it's available on Barnes & Noble, is unless it's getting distributed to places where people see it, and by the way, that's going to be harder for smaller presses with the folding of Baker and Taylor and stuff like that. It makes it extremely hard to be able to actually notice, which is why I was asking about, where it gets marketed on the shelves, because if you can have some just showing up in bookstores would be nice so that people can actually notice it and pay attention to it,
And one of the things, like particular, because you mentioned distribution for Athos, and I imagine this is the case for a lot of small presses in the States, but one thing that I didn't realize until we were going through the process for both of these books is that like through no fault of Athos's, having these books distributed through Indigo Chapters, which is the biggest bookseller in Canada, is a colossal pain in the ass if you're a small press in the United States. Like, it took longer than it should have for the paperback of Cast Off to be available. Like, we couldn't get the pre-order available on like the Indigo website. And for, most of my, most people who know me, like most of my readers or fans, if they even exist,
clearly exist. I saw them.
I'm sure they exist somewhere. Are like are Canadian, right? And so if I can't say to them, like the question I get all the time is, oh, is it in Chapters or is it Indigo? And I say, well, you can buy it on their website, but they don't stock it on the bookshelves because Athos. So you got to go on there, and then immediately people lose interest, right? And because a lot of Canadians that I talk to here don't want to buy their books on Amazon; they want to buy it from Indigo, and so the fact that it's on Amazon.ca doesn't actually help me very much. And so it's dependent on me, because I'm the guy who's up here, to go to the Indigos that I can in Ottawa and be like, hey, I'm a local author. Can you put it on the local author shelf? I can't go to Toronto or Edmonton or whatever. Like, I'm not going cross country to get my book in bookstores. And that's just, and that's specifically because I'm here and my publisher is the other side of the border.
I heard Canada's a very small country. Are you sure?
We're all actually in one city.
Yeah.
But it's a really big
cover that
This
territory.
is why.
Yeah.
If you meet a Canadian anywhere in the world, you can ask them if they know another Canadian, and they will always know them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, do you know Bob from Toronto? We all know Bob from Toronto.
He's like my best friend.
Who among us is not actually Bob from Toronto?
I went to university with him. Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
The distribution thing too made me think. I saw a study, it was either last year or the year before, where people were asking me specifically, like, oh, you keep winning awards. That must mean so many sales. And then I laughed, and then I fell under my desk, and I just lay there for a week. Because there is only one condition under which winning an award results in noticeably higher book sales, and that's winning either the Hugo or the Nebula for the novel. And in almost all cases, and this is what the study was about, in almost all cases, this is because the winner is published with a big five that has worldwide distribution in every single bookstore of that novel already. So after it wins the award, it takes people 0.1 second and no barriers to go out and buy the novel. If it's something like, oh, my small press novella just won the World Fantasy Award and the Nebula Award, which it did, Neon Hemlock, you can buy it from their website. People are not going to go to the website and buy it. That's one extra step, and they're not going to take the step. It's like Brandon was saying, if they can't physically walk into a Chapters and pick it off the shelf, they literally are not going to buy it. Yeah. They're not even going to one-click it on Kindle. Yeah. And that's the case for so much of the book buying public. It's a little bit weird. I don't know. That's not how I consume books, but we are, I think, the 1%. Because we're writers.
Well, and this is how it's very different as well for indie. Sorry, is that it's the same problem slash challenge slash situation, in that you can say, oh yeah, if you order this book, if you go to the counter at Barnes and Noble and you say, can you order this book for me? Yeah, I'll order it for you. It's fine. It'll get there in however. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody is going to do
Nobody
that.
does it.
Yep.
Yeah.
No one. And so what you end up with is the people, you have this kind of separation between those of us who are like, oh, I want to buy this specific book that I know I want, or I will ask for my library. I'll do a library request to get this specific book so that I can borrow it from the library if the library will get it because they have the budget. Because what if they already blew their whole budget and then they tell me, no, I'm not going to order that book for you. Suck it up. And then on the flip
It's a
side,
direct
this
quote,
is,
by the way. It's exactly
yeah.
suck it
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And then they-
Librarians are very known for just straight talking to the
Yeah.
patrons.
Now get out.
Absolutely. But then on the flip side, you have like the Kindle Unlimited readers, and those are high volume, high density. They will read every werewolf, shifter, biker book that has been written by literally anyone and put into Kindle Unlimited because it's a fee every month, and they just pay it, and then they read 500 books that are all, technically novellas or shorter, and they go about their lives happily, gladly, living very differently from the rest of us.
for the rest of us people.
And
No shame, no
Shiftily.
score,
More power to them.
no
Listen.
shade.
No,
But it-
they,
but
they
it's-
might be werewolves. We don't judge.
It might-
That's
I-
right. But it's true. Like, I mean, the thing is that a lot of what we're talking about is curation, whether it's hand selling by booksellers, right? Or whether it's librarians recommending it or teachers, or if there's some kind of a list that people trust. Like easily the most successful was when this thing got onto BookBub. And BookBub as a selling thing, actually my mutual friend Marie Bilodeau, friend to many of us, is the one who sort of got me on this in the first place. And Athos, to their credit, put in for this. It is not the publisher. It is not cheap to get on there. However, when you get onto BookBub, it is a curated list, and that was astonishing because this sold like 2,000 copies without 3 weeks. Now, it was at a discounted price, but it was still not only an enormous amount of people bought it, and I had already earned out, so I was getting royalties from that. Not only did people buy it, the reviews shot up on Amazon and elsewhere. And I mean actual text, like literally written reviews. Like, I really thought this was good and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, where were these people? Like, it had been out for a while beforehand. And the answer is they didn't get it because there was not a curated list for them to look at. So it's also that, like, it was like, okay, there's like, well, I don't know how many BookBub recommends in a month, but, say there's like 5 books, right? You should look at these 5. They have a large list of people who are like, BookBub sends me stuff that I like. I will get this because they say I should. Oh, good. And BookBub makes sure they only pick up books. Most books they don't accept. They accept them if they think they've got potential, if they've got the right blurbs. I don't know, like a combination of things. But it's curation that we're talking about. The problem is, how do you actually get the curation when you're trying to actually get noticed for distribution at all? Like, how do you arrive there one way or the other? Like, and I want to acknowledge the few people in chat have been talking about this, about Venezia. The thing is, I found so many cool books by authors not from bigger presses, and I can't get them in stores. I don't mind ordering them online because I want them. I just wish those books would get more attention. I mean, yeah, the issue is not the total amount of readers that exist. The issue is getting, and including genre readers, the issue is getting those genre readers to notice. And what everyone has said here is absolutely right. It cannot be, oh, just do this. Even like scan the QR code and then no, it's got to be in front of them. That's the whole point of the impulse buy. They're like, oh, you have this here in front of me? I will take, that it makes a huge difference. Otherwise, it's asking an extra step that they're not going to do. Just let me reset quickly. So we are, this is the Beyond the 49th, I think is what it's called, the Talking with Canadian American Authors. I'm joined by Valerie Valdes, Premee Mohamed, and Brandon Crilly. My name's Gregory Wilson. We are talking about the state of publishing. We will talk a little bit about writing, too, in general, in American and Canadian publishing. But thanks to everyone who is here both in Twitch and also in YouTube. Grivix actually says, still pondering in YouTube about cozy horror. Is this like vampires under a blanket watching TV, or ghouls drinking tea watching a rainy autumn day, or a witch stroking a cat waiting for a cake in the oven? The only thing I'll say about that, Grivix, is I'm slightly disturbed that feels vaguely like a Gen AI prompt, and I'm sure that that's not what we would want. But if you asked us to write that, we would do a bang-up job, okay? I just want to say. But no, thank you, everyone, for listening in. So distribution, I think, is and curation is kind of a big thing. Do we have a thought about what I mean, what we can do to address this on some level. Like there have been all kinds of discussions of doing. There's obviously been authors co-ops over the years. There have been, like I've been talking to a number of people recently about unionizing. And literally unionizing freelancers. I don't know.
I think it's illegal for us to do, by the way.
What?
FYI. I think in
Everything
the
is
United
illegal in
States,
America. I mean,
for writers, I think we are literally not
their
allowed
country
to
is better.
unionize.
How is that illegal?
Country is
I
better.
can't remember. I saw this recently and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We are wrong and bad in this specific way. I forgot.
I legitimately came into this you always thinking through the panel before you come in. I was like, I got to make sure. I got to be very like not pro America, but like I gotta I'm not that, but like I don't want you to feel like crap about your country by the end of this panel.
It's
but
fine. We're already
what?
there a long time ago. Brandon.
Yeah,
Long time ago.
there are like writers guilds that are specific for certain industries, but if I'm not mistaken, we cannot
Oh.
unionize. And so the Writers Guild, I think,
Right, because you got
so
like
you've
the
got
Screen
like
Actors Guild and stuff.
yeah, and so
Yeah,
you've
okay.
got certain groups that are able to do it because they fit into certain professional niches. But if I'm not mistaken, us novelists are the ones that
Oh,
are
man.
hosed.
But you know,
That's wild to me because sorry, I was like, we
no,
have the Writers Union
just
of
very, very
Canada.
quickly. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Writers Union in Canada is also not a union because I think
Right.
it might be illegal for us as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's-
the TWUC, the Writers Union of Canada, they have like a whole disclaimer on their website saying we are not actually a
We're not
union.
actually a union,
The
yeah.
dues that you pay are not union dues. We cannot do any collective action. We're not allowed.
Right. Yes, maybe it's the same here.
What Tina
so-
says in chat is about that. It's because you can't unionize if you don't have a unified employer. But I have to say, this has not been to me put to the test yet. I would love to see, for example, an organization that might rhyme with Blifwa consider the possibility of seeing what would happen if they did try to actually unionize and test the idea. Because I think it's on very shaky ground to claim that because you have a group of freelancers that don't have a particular employer, that somehow that means you can't unionize vis-a-vis that employer. Why? You're part of a union. If you if a publisher wants to work with you, you make it clear that you will work only if they accept sort of unionized contracts, which is what they often do in theater, by the way, Broadway and off Broadway. You have people
Right,
who are
yeah.
union and people who are non-union, and if you're non-union, you're sort of looked side-eye by people who are union, and for good reason, because you need to be. I'm in a union, like my teachers' union, right? Like we're in other capacities, but like I don't know. I would love to see that tested in some way and challenged, because it feels very sketchy to me that it just, because you're right. I think you're right that freelancers can't do that, but they should be able to, though. I don't see why that's necessarily a legal barrier if it ever came to the test. Problem is, who's going to fund it, though, right? Like you got to fund a legal challenge, and we got to write books, right?
Yeah,
We are all so flush with cash.
so
Yeah,
much
exactly.
money. There's so much money.
Thankfully, we're all independently wealthy, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We can use our
Yeah, oh,
Anthropic
God.
lawsuit money.
Yeah, we'll just use that.
Oh my God! All right, I didn't want to come to that, but I will come to that. So, I guess all of well, I mean, listen. There has been a lot of discussion, quite obviously, over in particular the last 2 years about the rise of Gen AI, and especially over the last year about the rise of slop and the junk that is sort of doing things. And I guess my question is, to what degree do we think that the issue is, because the way that it feels to me is there's this sense of, well, now with the advent of Gen AI, this is going to go away, and this is going to go, and this is going to go away. And I do wonder if this isn't coming up with another excuse not to pay authors, but we clothe it in something different. So now the big boogeyman is just Gen AI. Incidentally, Gen AI is a scourge and should be yeeted into the sun. Like it's horrific, right? And we all need to collectively fight it. And I do think it's a bubble which will burst and have terrible economic consequences, but never mind. But I'm wondering, is this just sort of reconfiguring the way that we label we can't actually pay authors what they're worth? Is that a general sense of where we're at, or is Gen AI of a different kind, and so it's created this entirely new and separate challenge for us on the sort of publishing side of things? I wonder.
I think it's the second one, because without. I don't want to sound like I'm looking at publishing through rose-tinted glasses, because I've been at this too long to look at publishing through rose-tinted glasses. But I genuinely think that the majority of, like, when you're working directly with like editors, even at the big four, like it's people who love books.
No, I agree
and
with that. Yes.
right, like that's
Mhm.
so. But there's somebody, you go high enough, and there's somebody who all they care about is the bottom line, right? So obviously that comes into effect. But to me, I think the broader issue, which affects things like distribution and how many, say, Canadian markets there are versus American,
Right.
is the like how Gen AI contributes to workload and burnout. And I immediately started thinking about all of the short fiction editors who are, which, I mean,
Oh,
Valerie, you're probably
geez,
dealing
yeah.
with this, right? Like
Yep.
the sudden influx of submissions written by AI, and then you get more people burning out, and more people being like, fuck, if this is what's happening, I don't want to start a press because I don't want to deal with that on top of other stuff. Like we looked at, like, here we have say On Spec magazine, for example, which is our
RIP.
oldest and longest running magazine, right? And Diane Walton had announced, you guys probably saw this, right? But like, for folks in the chat, like, she announced, where, like, she was stepping down. And if I remember correctly, from when I saw the announcement, it was like nobody else on the team they were like, yeah, no, we've been doing this for a long time, we're just going to call it. And nobody else wanted to step into it. And for a hot minute there, it looked like On Spec was just going to shutter. And then, if I remember correctly, said like another publisher came in and said they were gonna, we'll keep them afloat, is what I've heard. But again, we have these situations where, like, these even long running, uh, in this case, magazines are like, yeah, I think we're just gonna get out, right? And I think that's where we see the broader impact on a broader impact of Gen AI, in my opinion.
Others?
Sorry, there's a little animal here who's trying to pull off my socks.
Oh.
Hello, Fiasco.
That would be the kitten, Franca.
Oh, hello, kitten.
What a bad kitten. Yeah, no, I just wanted to sign off on everything Brandon says. What I'm seeing as the cost of the slop is opportunity cost. Is people who leave because they are burnt out from dealing with losing the signal in so much more noise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just burning out, and I don't blame them. And people who, kind of like you were saying, like, oh, well, we're not going to step up and start a new magazine at this point. Why would we, when we're just going to get flooded with this gloop? And driving good people out of the places they love to be, that's what I see as the cost, is not impacting sort of business as it exists, but sort of all those interstitial things that now have these awful, like, squeaking friction points that Gen AI slop generates rather than fixing. Like, even stuff like, generating prompts for emails to write to your coworkers at your publisher. Like, stop it. Now somebody has to fix that. Now somebody has to try to parse meaning from this word salad that you just pasted into your email inbox. Now somebody has to figure out what the ask was. Like, it's creating pain points, I think, and that's the change, I think.
I think also, speaking of the signal to noise situation, AI slop is also flooding the market, especially in indies. Self-pub it's becoming just a giant problem for discoverability on Amazon, for example, where not only are you competing with just a vast quantity of AI slop, you are competing against people pirating stuff with AI slop. So it's like, hey, that's my book. Wait a minute, that's not my book. That's somebody made a fake Gen AI version of my book. Not me specifically, but this has happened to other people, where it's like you are stealing sales from existing books and authors by not the same kind of piracy we used to have, but by this absolutely just unhinged AI crap. And that is on top of just flooding the market with, just low quality garbage that looks almost exactly like, but just different enough. And so again, that has like tanked Kindle Unlimited in a lot of ways, to my knowledge, is that when you're getting paid by page views based on this kind of vast metric, and all of these fake things are stealing page view money from you, then you get a much smaller check, and it sucks.
I wonder if and also hi to Gan Eden. That's Jennifer Brozek, who is, of course, a Hugo nominated editor and all that for many, many different things, both short fiction and long fiction. Hi, Jen. Good to see you. I wonder then if that's true. Um, I wonder if there's going to be. My guess is, I don't know whether this is true. This is partially coming, again, this is anecdata. This is coming from my own experience in terms of dealing with my students, based on a lot of changes I made this semester. The short version of this is I really essentially tripled my workload because I pulled all of the stuff in class, except for the reading. So everything now is done in class completely, because it's the only way that I can be sure that I'm actually getting my students and hearing them, and not some AI-ified version, whether it's Grammarly or more likely ChatGPT, of them. And I was starting to resent it. I was starting to resent my students, and that's a very bad place to be. And I'm like, I've got to change this. So massively increased my workload. I think I will be pulling back a little bit. I know how to do that now that I've done it once. But the good news coming out of it, and this is going to lead to my question, is that I was surprised at the level at which my students were engaging with the material, and they are right in front of me. They are not on their phones. They are not on their laptops. These are handwritten. So I know for a fact that they are coming from them, unless they have chips wired in their brain. This is coming directly from them. They don't even have AirPods in their ears. Okay. And what I'm getting from them is decent stuff. Like, it's actually decent material. I would rather that I be allowed to have them do long papers and so forth. I think that's important too. But at the very least, they're learning the material that I'm teaching in courses that are often driven by fantasy and science fiction. So I guess my question is, I wonder if there will not be then a push for what so-called real authors, right, us, can provide, precisely because we're not that. Like, I find, I don't know if you feel this is the same way, but there's a reason that everyone talks about this like slop. And everyone talks like this about being weary of it and about the sameness of it. Like, everything's painted the same basic beige fuchsia something. You know what I mean? Like, it's all the same thing. And I wonder if in the face of that, looking at the actually wonderfully prose that is being done in our genre in different places, maybe there is an opportunity then for people who are going to be seeking at that specifically, like, certified, not AI, or I don't know, like, is something like that. Do we see that as a possibility that people are looking for that or could look for that?
I mean, I know people are doing it already. People are putting that sticker on things. People are putting it in their books. People are using it as a marketing tool. Whether it will work on consumers is definitely the question, I think. And you raised it, and it's there, and I don't have answers for you, unfortunately. But I wondered somewhat if this is becoming kind of like an Upton Sinclair moment for writing, where, you know, we are going to start having people eating chalk-filled bread and going, what if we had somebody who could make sure my bread doesn't have chalk in it and my cans of meat aren't full of horrifying stuff? But uh yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Because I think that for some people, and I hate to use the word consumers because it just makes it sound so clinical, but I think some people have like a good enough threshold. And if we get to the point where AI is good enough, are they going to care? And I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question, is how, like right now, the art that's being generated it isn't on par, right? But if it eventually gets to a point, like, or like, yeah, will I replace it, or will people see it as a oh, that's a cool novelty, but they'll still want the human generated stuff, right? Like, I mean, I tend, I think partly because I'm a historian by trade and I kind of look at the long view of stuff, that surprisingly makes me optimistic, which really doesn't make any sense. But in a way, but it does. I think much in the way that if you take the long view of history, we like society skews more progressive when you look at like the total, like, we kind of go like this, but in the end, we tend to, head towards better stuff. And I think that's also true of technology. Like, if you look at like if you look at, say, consumer is a good word to use here, I think, because if you look at industries where innovation, which is also a loaded word, but where, let's say, changes in technology have drastically changed the face of the industry, whether it's the Industrial Revolution or like robotics in factory work later on, and that ends up changing workforces in such a way that a whole lot of people need to find other work or get kind of phased out, and that's obviously terrible. But like to me, art is different. Like I think there's a people are always hungry for art. I think that's a lot harder to replace, even if the AI is gets good enough. To me, that's not the same as like a factory shop floor. Like both are like you know like the factory shop floor is also incredibly integral. Like I don't want to make it sound like I'm diminishing factory work, for anybody in the chat who happens to be a factory worker, but um, you never know.
That sound you hear was all the
Um,
general, GM plants
yeah,
in
exactly.
Michigan.
I've
Like,
General Motors
screw
people
this
front
guy.
lawn with
Screw all the
picket
YouTube
signs.
ones.
Yeah, yeah, that's not what I mean. But art I think is very particular, and so I think no, I think like Greg, you mentioned the bubble's going to burst at some point, and I think that's true. And I think the problem that to bring back to burnout is we like how many of us will still be here, right? Like like how many new authors? Like I think of that article that Wesley Chu published however long ago about like the thing of like most authors don't make it past their third book. I think it was
Yeah.
like that, and all the data that supports that. Like how many authors are not going to even make it past their first one because of all these things, right? And hopefully we all kind of last, but
Well,
you know,
but let's talk about that. Like it may be, and that's the question I have here. I might direct this to Premee first because I remember at when we were talking about this, Premee, and you mentioned this thing about the awards thing not leading to sales, and like all that sort of thing. Now Premee is an exceptional writer. Like that doesn't take me to say that, but like there's a reason that like you win multiple. Premee wins multiple awards and all this stuff. It's not out of nowhere, right? He's a wonderful writer. Um, the thing that I wonder about though is I remember you mentioned that to me and I'm like, are you kidding me? I cannot believe that this level of awards wouldn't at some point create this. Clearly, we need to be getting this person's stuff. I understand you explain why, but I'm saying it's amazing to me. So I wonder about how much, and this gets back to my thing about the whole unionizing thing, but leave aside the work related portion of it, the critical nature of having communities of peers and colleagues, not just readers. We obviously need readers, naturally. That's what we're here for, right? But like, do networks of writers make it possible for us to, it doesn't necessarily make it possible for us to pay the bills. It doesn't, I understand that it doesn't practically do that. I'm wondering if there is an emotional support level at which we need to make an effort not to be siloed in the way that authors can often become, and that we've got to be able to reach out to each other as members of a community in the way that something like CanCon tries to do, or other conventions that we're associated with, or other, or having a chat about this on a Twitch channel, say. Like, do we need more of this, especially in the face of what feels like these pressures, so that we can stick it out? Because I am convinced it's a bubble. I am convinced that a lot of these things are going to improve, but it won't matter if none of us are here when that happens. I mean, it'll matter to the future maybe, but it won't. But it won't matter for us, and it will be an enormous loss, because we won't have had the opportunity to pass on information to the next generation of writers that would be able to do the same thing in turn. So I guess, I don't know, Premee, do the networks help at all? Do the communities help at all? Should we do more of that sort of thing? Like, what would that look like if we had us working more in a community to support each other emotionally, I guess, as writers?
Yeah, it's such an enormous question, I guess. I know I for sure wouldn't have stuck it out as long as I have in publishing, if not for my community. Just, having people who actually understand what you mean when you talk about publishing, because otherwise you end up doing things like telling your therapist about it and just having her sit there like,
Yeah.
what?
Mm-hmm.
No, that can't be right.
There's
No,
no way.
that's how it works.
Yeah.
That's how it works. It doesn't just work like that for me. It works like that for everybody. And then you sound nuts, which is okay because you're in therapy. But yeah, I'm curious too when you mentioned the word siloing. I guess being in kind of sci-fi fantasy horror, I I don't see a ton of that in the community. What I the silo that I see is kind of Canlit, God forbid, and Canlit's idea of speculative fiction. They don't use the word genre. Genre is kind of a swear word, so they don't like to swear.
The big G. Okay.
So those are the two silos I sort of see. But I'm curious as to, can you dig in a little bit further when you say the siloing?
It's probably inartful terminology on my front. I was really thinking more of isolation. Specifically, I was thinking about authors in isolation because
I love isolation.
But in all seriousness, I was trying to be careful about that because I'm not actually making an argument that like everything's better if we're all in coffee shops together. Like I'm not saying that, but I guess the point is the sense that I get from a lot of people is authors talking about, I'm here doing my work for hours, days, months, years, and then I produce this stuff and it's like I'm sending it into the void somehow, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like no one else is challenging the void at the same time. A different kind of void, but it's still a void. And like
I think for me
that's what I guess
exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I came into writing kind of through short fiction, I often found myself actually wishing I had like a more experienced author or mentor to talk to.
Yeah.
I was mostly just talking to people kind of, my peers, like short fiction writers who had made their first or second sale or whatever. And those are all the people that I've kind of hung out with and grown up with over the last 6 years or so. But exactly what you're talking about, that information transfer, newer writers or writers who are just getting into publishing, they can't calibrate something as normal or abnormal unless they can compare it to somebody who's already on the inside.
Right.
Otherwise, they're kind of standing there looking at their contract like, oh, this seems fine. I guess I'll sign away my film and TV rights. It's not like anyone's going to make anything of those anyway.
Yep.
Sign. No. The rest of us are like thrashing around like this. Don't do it.
Yep.
But if you're not in a community, how do you know who's telling you? There is a vast amount of information on the internet. It's hard to parse what's true, what's useful, what's being biased, what's being monetized. This was my whole last year as the writer in residence here at the library, was people who would come to me with like printouts and be like, well, this guy says I should do this. I'm like, that guy is trying to get you to buy his $7,500 novel writing class.
Yeah.
Throw him into a volcano.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Which by the way, not to get off on a tangent, but I saw there's an advertisement on Poets and Writers. I could not believe this for a series of tiered hybrid publishing plans that included, get this, the lowest priced plan was $7,500 for 2 guaranteed review sites, for full distribution in Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Like we couldn't do that anyway, right? And it like and things of that nature. And then if you got the platinum plan, or whatever it was called, the premium, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like $10,000. And I almost want to say it was per book. I don't know if it was that, but $10,000, something like that. And they made all this thing about like, we don't even start this process unless we accept you editorially. I'm like, come on, man. Like, and this is Poets and Writers that is allowing this crap to advertise within this work. Like, but again, as you say, are people going to immediately know that, or are they going to be desperate and think this is the way this system works? And, without someone to be able to guide them with just, and also going through Gen AI slop, to be able to find it, like, where are they going to gather this information? So, I mean, and I guess that is partially what I'm talking about, at least in some detail, is this question of like community. Like, Valerie, you want to talk about that, like at the community level?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna brief aside because I think Brandon also needs some FaceTime here, but like brief aside, you could previously be like, Google it. You can't tell anyone to Google it now. You tell somebody Google it now, and they're gonna get, first of all, a bunch of links to something that is being shilled. Second of all, first AI summary, then a bunch of sales links, then images. It's going to be a series of unfortunate events until possibly they hit a link that may or may not actually answer their question because the algorithm and the whole system is now borked.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Brandon, thoughts? What about communities and networks?
I mean, community is essential, right? Like,
yeah. I was
Sorry, go
impressed
ahead.
with yours. No, I just want to say,
Oh,
because
thank
when
you.
I went up to when I was at CanCon, you had your launch event that you did.
Mm.
That has to be the warmest, like nicest, most pleasant like launch event I ever saw. Like, everyone was like, like pumping their fists and cheering for everything, and like, but I mean, in an engaged way, like in a really interesting way. So that was really lovely to see. I guess, and I guess my question is about like communities like that. Like, A, have you experienced that quite a bit? B, how do we develop more of those, I guess, do you think?
Yeah, the second part of that was what I wanted to kind of jump off of, because like CanCon, I mean, like I got very lucky as a wee little baby writer, to be here in Ottawa, where there was already like a sizable existing writing community, or separate writing communities. Like we have the same issue that Premee was talking about, of like that divide between CanLit and SpecFic. Like we have the Ottawa International Writers Festival, who are amazing people and do amazing stuff, and then there's us for CanCon, and we talk, like we happen to know each other, but like we talk once a year. Like it's not like we're and I mean, and to like the Writers Festival credit, like they will, the organizer, Sean is a huge fan of sci-fi and fantasy, so he'll occasionally like sneak one of us in there, which is kind of cool. Um, but there were a bunch of people already here, and so what's been interesting in the last whatever dozen, 15 or so years that I've been actively involved as an author, to see that community grow even more, and a bunch of people, like Kate Hartfield and Derek Kunskin and Amal, and like level up, and more people kind of added to the fold, and people moving to Ottawa from other places, and like Sui and Kevin Hearn, and it's like, yes, please come here. But so there's a luck aspect to it, right? Like are you lucky enough to be in an area that's already kind of a hub of writers, whether it's Ottawa or New York, or like out on the I know my directions, out on the West Coast, wherever Charlie Jane and Fonda and all of them are, like like over there, right? And that's partially luck, but there's also an element of like deliberate curation, right? Like that warmth and stuff that you were talking about, Greg, is the product of, I mean, hell, I've been working with CanCon for 10 years, right? And it was around before I came on the scene. Like it's deliberate, and there's an energy that's put in to kind of keep that community alive. That honestly you don't see enough of it. And so I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna do something that is rare for me. I'm gonna call people out. I think we need more people to step up and create those communities. Like, for example, Toronto doesn't have a CanCon. They haven't for a long time,
Yeah.
even though Toronto is huge and there's a ton of writers there, and you get a lot of people who are like a lot of people are genuinely busy. Like we're all doing already too much, like everyone here included, especially Premee, but sorry. But like we're all already doing a lot, and we're trying to get like like any extra task that you take on also takes away from trying to get your work out there, right? Which is always priority one. But I think there are way more people who could be, creating these phenomenal spaces, like doing what the Flights of Foundry people did, which was
Right.
start this absolutely incredible virtual conference that has sustained now for 6 years. Is that something like that? With the folk, what LD Lewis and Brent Lambert and their team did with Fiacon, like they created that from scratch, and it fucking killed, because they had the right team for it. So I think I think more people need to be curating those spaces, to bring people in, and I wish more people would. But I think part of it too is that a lot of us organizers don't talk to each other either. Like we're also kind of siloed, and you try to push against that, and that's tough too. So there are roadblocks to it, but people need to step up, man.
Yeah, I will say as a NaNoWriMo former
Mm,
municipal liaison,
Yes.
that unfortunately is a void that um, has yet to be filled.
mm,
And even when it existed, it was a major unifying thing that existed in so many different cities across the
yeah. We
world.
we had one here, yeah.
Yep. But now that that's gone, it has often collapsed a lot of groups. Our local group still maintains a Discord, but people don't really get together as much as they did before.
Mhm.
Things develop and then things fragment. And so like Dream Foundry's Discord is definitely a place that I often send baby writers to, because it is so full of people at different skill levels, different knowledge levels, and everyone there is very eager to be helpful. And I think that is one of the important aspects of community. I think also that one of the one of the issues that can arise is the distinction between a community for writers and a community for writers and fans, because those are
Mm.
not the same thing
Nope.
and
Yeah.
they don't do the same thing.
Mhm.
There is an existing perpetual sort of issue in uh, publishing where if you're only selling to writers, especially in short fiction, this can be a huge problem. If your readership is primarily composed of people who want to be published in your publication, you're not going to thrive, because that is a very small community compared to the vast quantity of people who might want to just read stuff.
Mhm.
And it functions very differently. It's a different dynamic. It's a different kind of churn, and it's not as sustainable. I look at something like Premee's being published by New Edge Sword and Sorcery, and they have developed a very strong online again, Canada. Hey, shout out to the publisher, Brackenbury is in Canada. But they have a very strong online community, and they try to bring in readers is really what it is. Are a lot of the people there writers? Yeah, they are, but they also are just fans of sword and sorcery. And so having that kind of group, yes, there's like a subset of writers in there that are talking about their writing and what they're trying to do with their careers and publishing and whatever, but it also is just people nerding out about a thing they love. And so developing the space for that to happen is also, I think, really important. And that is also where you end up with the difference between like a professional sort of con, like I would say the Nebulas is more like a pro sort of con,
Mhm.
as opposed to like a world con, which is maybe more of a fan con, although arguably people have said that's shifting. But it's different dynamics, it's different kinds of community, it's different levels of community. And so there's the communal support we get from each other as writers going through the same writer stuff, but also how do we then kind of cross that line to be not just writers, but also fans of each other?
Yeah, that's well said. There's a I was thinking about a little bit about the uh fantasy subreddit that's run by Steve Drew, which, it was largely composed of fans, although they had the AMAs, like many people did, including me, did Ask Me Anythings on there. And Steve did good work with them, but uh Reddit, the larger problems with Reddit sort of have an effect on that. And also it's not it doesn't have, let's say, the immediacy of other sort of like fan groups, because it's true, if you're marketing largely to other writers, if you're selling mostly to other writers, you're not going to go anywhere. You have to sell to people that are not mostly writers, like there's a lot more readers than there are writers. And so that has to be done on some level, I guess. I was thinking a lot of these things, it feels to me, as you say, they come together and then fracture. Like I did back in 2011 and 2012, I did the Wellspring Workshop, which was a short-lived thing that was kind of based on the sort of the Clarion West style system, or Clarion system. And I was in this workshop with Cameron Hurley and Eden Robbins and Brad Bollier, and like a lot of good people doing this stuff. And that was and Eugene Myers, EC Myers was in that too. And like that was really, really, not only were they great writers that I learned a lot from as I was in there, they were also super supportive because they were going through the same kinds of things. But it only lasted for 2 years. It took a lot of resources to run it and kind of set it up. Brad was the one who ran it, and then coordinating schedules and all that sort of makes it, and so that then again sort of fractured again, and sort of fell apart. And so I guess, yes, on the one hand, we need to be able to take that step, as you say, Valerie, to be able to sort of look at the broader scale. I'm also thinking about being able to have the sort of emotional smaller group support that we need sometimes to make sure that people are all going through these things together, and that it's not just kind of isolated individuals who are dealing with this stuff, both for practical reasons, like, look at this contract, does this make any sense to you? Do you have a recommendation for, if you don't have an agent, do you have a recommendation for an IP lawyer or whatever, like that sort of thing, and then also for the kind of emotional side of things too. And as usual, I imagine Canada is much better being supportive than America, because it's just the way it is.
I know. I don't know, man. Like I think
I'm being facetious. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I know, but like as you guys were talking though, like I'm just, Edmonton has just over 1 million people, 1.2 million people. We don't have a writer con. We
that's
don't.
true, yeah.
I don't know if we really have like a writer community. I know a handful of writers here. Several of them hate each other, which, okay, legit. It means sometimes, though, that like you go out for lunch with one of them and you can't even propose something like co-working or whatever. And like, we don't have what Ottawa has. Like when I was at CanCon, and Kate, by the way, buy Kate Hartfield's books. I adore her. She let me stay at her house so I could avoid many, many dollars in hotel fees for our book event. Was telling me, yeah, they go to local coffee shops and they actually write.
We do.
And the human contact, again, helps you sort of set your own levels of what's normal, what's a good level of support, how much, isolation do you need? How much togetherness do you need? How does it help your process? How does it help your publishing? If you do need things like links or names or resources, or, hey, do you know someone who does this? Do you know a fill in the blank position here? I have some work for them, blah, blah, blah. Doing that in person is not exactly comparable to doing it online. And practically my entire writing community and all my writerly friends are people I only communicate with online.
Yeah.
Except for my cat, Fiasco, who's working on a screenplay. I don't think that really counts, though, because he won't tell me what it's about or what he's going to do with it when he's done.
Mm-hmm. You don't have the right of first refusal of like,
I feel like you
No,
should.
no, no. Well, I feel like I should too, but I don't know. I'm starting to think he may have scammed me to get adopted from the shelter. I don't know. It's been a couple of years, you guys.
It all fades into the mists of the past. I don't
I'm
know.
getting
What do you
suspicious.
Chat, quick reset. We'll be going for about another half hour or so, talking about stuff. We are going to open up to questions in a couple of minutes, and we'll talk about that when we actually get there. But I am here with Valerie Valdes and Brandon Crilly and Premee Mohamed as we talk writing and publishing, Canada and America, and the state of things in 2025, the year of our Lord, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very fascinating for me to listen to all this so far. Let's if we can maybe sort of zip a bit over then into we've talked about sort of publishing generally. Where do we think the field is at in terms of, and I have a thought myself, but I want to hear what you folks think first, about where we're at in terms of craft, and specifically I mean the work being produced right now within our genre, within science fiction, fantasy, horror, and romantasy, within these fields. Like, I will say my sense is that I think the craft stuff that I see coming out now is as good or better as anything I've seen in genre. I think the level of the work that's being produced is absolute top notch, which is not to say that there wasn't ever top notch stuff before. It's just there's a lot of great stuff coming out right now, is my sense of it. Since we've been talking about a lot of not as optimistic, upbeat stuff relating to the publishing side, how do we feel about where the craft, the state of our field in terms of craft is? Is there anyone specifically we want to shout out about that too? Like, this is amazing and you should read that, sort of thing. And that's for anybody.
I would love to shout out one that I thought about a little earlier, Valerie, when you mentioned you said it wasn't just cozy horror. There was another adjective in there, and I'm blanking now. And was it cozy fantasy horror or something?
I think I just threw all of the I said
fantasy,
cozy horror romance.
Cozy, yeah, that was a cozy horror romance. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I read a little while ago.
As well.
Direct Descendant, which was Tanya Huff's most recent novel, which is a cozy horror romance, and it's I mean, Tanya's phenomenal and has been around forever, but the reason why I loved Direct Descendant was because it's set in this quaint little small town where the town has made a pact with this thing called the darkness that lives in, it's kind of like the upside down below the town, and everyone just kind of knows that, there's Alice, who is the tentacled sea creature who lives in the lake, and we feed her occasionally with bodies. Now, we don't kill anybody, so if somebody happens to die, we'll just feed her to Alice, and Alice keeps us safe, and it's all good. And there's there's this kind of supernatural presence that makes sure that if somebody wanders into town, we can just we can wander them back out again if they need to. And there's a little, there's a romantic subplot and it's delightfully quaint and quirky. But the thing I especially loved about it is so very Canadian. Like Tanya doesn't hide the fact that it's a small Canadian town, and to the point that like one of the main characters has just moved to Ontario. She was a teacher in Saskatchewan, and which the fact that I saw Saskatchewan mentioned in a like it's a Daw book, like right, like mentioned in a Big Four or imprint of a Big Four, whatever book, was astounding to me. Has moved from Saskatchewan because of like teacher politics related stuff. I was like, I know exactly what she's talking about. I read that news story, and so and that's all throughout the book. And so it gave me this little nugget of hope that I mean, admittedly, it's Tanya, and Tanya can get away with a lot because she's Tanya Huff. I say with adoration, and but it gave me this tiny little glimmer of hope that maybe we can be a little bit more like overtly Canadian. I would love that if we could. Can I set something that isn't in Toronto? That would be amazing. So I have this little glimmer of hope that I think we can get away with that a little bit more in the next maybe a couple of years before people notice and they put the lid back on.
Others?
When I first started getting published, I sometimes got people in interviews who would ask questions like, well, we noticed that your debut novel starts off in Edmonton. Is that a real place? Like,
No,
did you
they
make that
really-
up? I'm like,
What?
I am so sorry, you're stupid. But okay, and also I did not actually say this to any of my interviewers, but I was thinking it. But I never actually got suggestions from any of my editors to change the locations of any of my books from where they're published. From ECW, you expect that because they're a Canadian publisher, so they're like, this is fine. For my American publishers or anything like that, I've never even heard them like hint at it or like mention it. And I also get the impression, though, from people that they think Canadian authors are constantly pressured to change the location of their book from Canada to the States. I have never seen that. Maybe I'm not talking to the right people, but I now have to mention Saskatchewan in my next book.
Please do. Please do.
I don't know how I'm going to because it's a secondary world fantasy, but I'm gonna
There's gotta be a way
squeeze
to
it
do
in
it,
there
yeah.
somewhere. I don't know.
I think
Yeah, sorry, go on.
like I think in terms of the pressure, I think what I've heard mostly is like the pressure is like not to like it's not like here's the book and here's the finished manuscript and change the location.
Mhm.
It's in the writing process. Like just don't even like
Oh.
you're gonna have an easier job selling it if it's not right. Like Kate, for example. I don't want to
But
speak
do you
too
have
much
a better
of this.
chance at getting a grant if you set it in Canada?
That's
Well,
than
see,
to
that's
say
the catch, right?
Canadian,
Like that.
Canadian, Canadian several
Canadian,
times.
Much below
Also,
suspicion
again,
then.
speaking as an assessor, we have given grants to people who have books set everywhere and anywhere and not real places. But people think that if you make sure it's a very Canadian book, that the Canada Council for the Arts is sure to give you a grant. That's not how it works. We are
That has
not
not
looking
been
at the
my
location.
experience.
That has not been my experience. Yeah, no, it's nope. We're looking at different stuff. But anyway, sorry, go on.
No, I was just thinking of like again, I don't want to speak too much out of school because it's not my story, but like we mentioned Kate Hartfield and who writes just phenomenal historical fantasy. And I know that she's written like The Valkyrie, which is Norse stuff, and then Mercutio, which is not historical fantasy because it's Shakespeare, whatever. It writes at least
It kind of is fantasy, though.
I get it, yeah, but I know that she has an idea for a Canadian historical fantasy, which
Yeah, the Winnipeg General Strike.
Yeah, the Winnipeg General Strike, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
and she told me this idea, and I'm like, "Fuck yeah! Please give me an
Yeah.
alternate history of the Winnipeg General Strike."
Yeah.
But her concern still, even with the wild success that she's had, is that it'll never. You won't even. Her publisher won't even take it, let alone
Yeah.
readers. And I'm like,
Well, it's a good thing she got a grant for it then.
"Oh, did she?
Yeah, she did actually.
I gotta talk to Kate."
Yeah, you gotta talk to Kate. But anyways, this also makes me think you might like, if you haven't read it yet, The Winter Night by Jess Battis, which is set in Vancouver.
Literally on my
Yeah,
to
which
I
is
got
set
a-
in
a copy from
Vancouver,
Jen.
and it's the most
Yeah.
Vancouvery thing you've ever read. I
Okay,
just
I gotta read it.
loved it.
I'll move it up on my list because the copy is sitting.
It's such a joy, and Jess is actually they're a poet, and it's one of those books
okay.
where you can tell, but not in like a wanky way. Like it's
Cool.
really, really good. I really loved it.
Sorry,
I'm not really answering Gregory's question.
That's
but
fine. I'm
anyways,
just raving
sorry.
about Grants in the chat. Ulysses Grant, any Grant. No, I was, but like, where are we at craft wise is what I was asking. So,
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
Brandon mentioned some of them.
Oh,
and
I forget.
Like in terms of books that are sold out. There are a lot of good ones in chat, by the way. We had, I scrolled up a little bit. Yeah. Wiswell. Yep. Travis Baldry, Eugene Bacon, Talabi, Zoe Hanamakuda, Evelyn Tang. And I would have mentioned P. Jelly Clark. I would have added in that mix.
Yeah.
I teaching Dejin in Cairo I started doing that last year in my fantasy class.
Nice.
To good effect. Anyway, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but it just feels like a good sort of critical mass of work being done right now, despite the disaster that is, in some ways dealing with the sort of practical publishing side. Valerie, you have someone that you want to shout out on the as people that you've been like, this person's great and you should be reading more of their stuff, besides yourself, of course.
I feel like every time this happens, my brain just empties, right? Like I just no, I got nothing. I've never read a book actually. What is reading? I don't know. I've got nothing. The one that I shouted out most recently was Sangu Mandana, who is writing, I would say it borders the line of cozy fantasy romance, but it I feel like what's interesting in romance, people perceive it as being very kind of emotionally stunted or not deep, right? People have this thought of romance is so shallow and it's just two people and they fall in love and maybe there's sex on the page and maybe there's not. It depends on what spice level it is, but there is just so much really thoughtful, emotionally evocative work going on in fantasy romance, and I think that that can get lost in kind of the romantasy. Again, you've got this perception of romantasy is all one way and then fantasy romance is a different thing. And I think in a way that's true, right? Romantasy at this point I think has evolved to have kind of a very specific aesthetic. And I think in some ways I the craft level is higher than some people give it credit for. But also, there is just so much really great work being done across the board. I do think that now we are in a place where I don't want to denigrate the writers of the past because I do think there is still so much high quality work that was done back in the day. But I think that the change, that sort of the sea change that has occurred in publishing via distribution networks, via less ability to connect directly with consumers, just thinking about the idea that once upon a time you used to have spinner racks in grocery stores and that just doesn't exist anymore, right? The number of bookstores, in a mall that you used to have a Walden Books in every mall, right? That's not a thing anymore. Even the locations of Barnes and Noble, which is now our most ubiquitous bookseller, Borders is gone. We've got Barnes and Noble, and that's kind of it. Otherwise, it's
Books a
independent
Million,
bookstores. Yeah,
but
Books a Million
but
is
yeah,
another
no,
one.
not a lot though. I know, I agree with you. Yep,
Yeah, and
mostly independents.
so right,
Independent
it's
bookstores,
mostly
let's go.
independence.
Independent
Yeah,
bookstores.
which high five, let's go. We have better access to them online thanks to different websites that provide that. But just it's a very different world than we used to have back in the day, in which you would have, a $2 paperback you could buy at the grocery store and people would just buy tons of them. And at that point, it was a question of how much quantity can we produce? How many writers can we put out there? How many books can we publish? And now it feels like it's arguably harder to get published today. And so you do sort of have to stand out more, I think. And I do think that that has led to sort of a platinum age of writing quality, honestly. That's
See,
just like my opinion, man.
the platinum age. I love it.
Yeah. No, I can dig that.
Right in the platinum age. All right. Well, let's. We got about 15 minutes, so let's open this up for some questions. And in both Twitch and YouTube, the way that would be great if we could do this, just to keep things easy. If any questions that you want for all four of us, or one of us, or two of us, or just the Canadians, or just the Americans, if you want to do all caps question. Colon, and then whatever your question is, that will keep it separate from everything else, and then I can kind of scroll up easily. So just like, question, why is Canada better than America, right? Like that, like that's That's the
Poutine.
Yeah,
Delicious poutine.
that's
Yeah.
what. Yeah, and maple
A couple
syrup.
of years ago for CanCon,
Grants.
it was at the same time as the Poutine
Oh, the
Festival.
Poutine Fest. That's right.
Yeah, the Poutine Fest, and I ate so much poutine that week, I thought I would explode.
There's a poutine
It did not
fest?
happen.
There's a poutine
Yeah,
fest?
in downtown Ottawa. Yeah,
It was amazing. I had like 7 different types.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
they got
poutine
good stuff.
fest.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have
Ottawa
really, really good
coming
stuff.
in hot,
God,
guys.
man,
Listen,
you know?
Yeah.
let's
Ottawa's great.
go.
Edmonton
Ottawa's-
doesn't have that. I don't know.
Ottawa's a fabulous
One thing
city.
Canada does have is PLR, which I don't think the States
Oh,
has.
yes, that's true.
PLR?
Do you guys have public lending right?
No.
No.
Okay.
Public lending
Yeah,
rate's
so I think Australia and the UK also have it. For people who don't know how that works, people think it's you get a certain amount of money per borrow. That's actually not how it works. They do a survey of 8 libraries out of all the libraries in Canada every year. They pick them at random, 8 random libraries, and they check to see if your book is in it. And if it's a yes, you get X amount. I think this year it was like $68 or something like that. So then however many books you've got times however many times they appear in the library times number of libraries up to a certain maximum, you get that amount.
Wow.
So this year I literally got my check and I burst into tears because I was like, that's my bills paid for like a month.
Yeah.
Like with 13 books on the go, I should freaking hope so.
Yeah.
But like a lot of my the books that I had published in 2020, 2021, 2022, those are not in libraries anymore. They've been removed from circulation. So to still be able to get some money from that check, I sat there and I sobbed.
Wow, that's
Like,
awesome.
libraries still have my book.
That's awesome.
It made such a difference.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's free to apply. So if there are Canadian writers in chat who haven't applied and they've got books out, just make sure you get in your paperwork and you may get a check.
Yeah, and it's surprisingly straightforward, the paperwork. Like I did it for
And
the
it's
first
extremely
time.
straightforward,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's super simple. Yeah.
They're not asking you anything hard.
I'm going to resist. I'm going to resist the urge to
you
make
can-
another comment about the superiority.
If you can photocopy, you're good.
Okay, question from Van Enznia. What do you all think is the hardest genre to get published in right now?
Ooh.
Hardest
I
genre.
have no idea.
If you're judging based on like what we were talking about before in terms of sales numbers and sort of bookshelf space, anecdotally, science fiction, especially hard SF, is getting harder to do. It doesn't mean you can't do it, but they're just not, the books are not out there to the same degree. I still don't know how much of that is like, I don't know whether that just happens to be something of the moment or not. You know, if you look at something, this is not hard SF, but like, you know, Murderbot has been kicking all kinds of ass right now. Part of that is because it's some of the best work done in genre in 30 years. Like it's, you know, Martha's a really, really good writer, but, and the Apple TV show didn't hurt, but she got the Apple TV show because of the books that she produced. Right. So, but it does feel like hard SF, at least anecdotally, is difficult or more difficult to get noticed. I have a friend who actually just finally decided to do the indie publishing route, and had an agent and the whole bit and just couldn't. It was space opera that he couldn't get pushed. And Valerie knows about from space opera, but like, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true though, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
We have thoughts about what the hardest is, genre, subgenre.
Yeah, like I think just the anecdata. Like I'm trying to think of like what I've seen come out, like traditionally published in, you know, like space opera or any sort of like, you know, volume of science fiction, and a lot of the ones I've seen pop are from established authors, right? Like I'm thinking of like Edward Ashton or Alex White, and I'm like, and these are folks who like they're on, like Ashton's on his 3rd or 4th book or something now, and obviously like, you know, Mickey 7 exploded and whatever, and you know Alex has had several trilogies now, so it's not. I can't think of a new. I can't think of like a bevy of like brand new debut hard SF authors recently, but that might be a distribution issue too. Who knows? But
What do we think? Hardest genre
yeah,
to get published in?
I don't know. Again, anecdotally, I keep hearing that it's sci-fi, and people who claim to have the numbers are pointing out that the numbers are reflected in bookstores, where they don't have sci-fi on the shelves anymore. They have the, you know, if they have the combined fantasy and sci-fi section, it's like 10% sci-fi, and as Brandon mentions, it's all established authors.
Yeah. That's what Prince
So
Justin
I don't know.
was in chat
I really
was
have no
saying
idea.
about that.
Yeah.
Valerie, what do you think? Oh, also thank you, Tom Tom, for the resub. I appreciate that. Hey there, thank you, Tom Tom, for the resub on my channel. For those of you who wondered why that triumphant music came in just then, that's why. Thanks, Tom Tom. What do you think, Valerie? Is there a particular subgenre that obviously romantasy is doing well for certain people here? You know.
So it's actually technically outside our purview, but I actually think the worst if you really are looking, what is the literal? I think it's westerns.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
westerns.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
That's a good
No,
point.
that's true.
not
I-
wanting to
I keep
burst
forgetting-
our.
I forget they're a thing.
Oh,
That's
I
a
was also
genre
going to say
too.
something like, one thing I saw a lot of at the library last year also was people who were like, yeah, I've got, these 18 short stories or whatever, and I'm going to shop them around and find an agent. And I was like, no, you won't.
Oh no.
So short story collections always have been kind of hard.
Yeah.
If you look at even something like N.K. Jemison's short story collection, you'll notice that came out after
Yeah.
she had published like a duology and 2 trilogies
Yeah.
and had won the Hugo and the Nebula and the Locus and everything. Like her short story collection didn't come out till after that. If you start with a short story collection, my anecdotal understanding is that's quite difficult.
Yeah.
And most of those stories have to have been published already.
Yeah.
You can't just like rock up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I want to say, and Jen, who's in chat, may actually have a little more knowledge about this than us here, but I want to say anecdotally that, yeah, you have to have like a 50-50 split of like stuff that's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
published and new
at
work.
least.
But you do have to have a lot that's already
Yeah.
been published. Like you have to
Yeah.
have made a name for yourself. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about like Hanan Bernardo has a collection. Thomas Ha's collection
Thomas
also
Ha's
just
collection,
came
yeah.
out. Trying to think of who else. Susan Palumbo actually has a collection,
That's right.
doesn't she?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
a couple years
Speaking
ago.
of Canadian,
Yeah. But almost all those stories had been published before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like
they,
you're
like,
essentially like
editors want proof that you have been through an editor with all
yeah,
these stories.
you are
Yeah.
not gonna just come out
Yeah.
swinging with a,
No.
a short story collection that
No.
is here's a new
Unless one of those stories was published in something ginormous like Harper's or the New York Times or
Yeah,
the
fair
Paris
enough, yeah.
Paris Review or something like that, and somebody scouted you and was like, "Have you got a collection?"
Fame breeds fame.
which-
Yeah.
Fame breeds fame. Yeah. But like
What about
anecdotally, I keep hearing that doesn't happen.
does crowdfunding? We were talking briefly about that at the beginning. Does crowdfunding affect that at all? Like I remember
have no
being
idea.
I remember being in an anthology which Time Travel Tales, which when it came was kickstarted back in 2013, 2014.
I'm in that
was
one too.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That Time Travel Tales, I don't know if you remember, Valerie,
Flame
was
Tree, what's up?
at the time that was at the time the most successful anthology, and I think one of the most successful publishing projects in
Oh, cool.
Kickstarter's history at the time.
Interesting.
Since then has been long since surpassed, but like
Oh yeah.
it, but that was back
But
then. Does crowdfunding affect any of this now? In a
I
positive way,
I
or-
don't think so, honestly. I think that the only crowdfunding that super matters, like it's you Brandon Sanderson. And then everyone will be like,
Yeah.
but he was Brandon Sanderson first. That's not again,
Yeah.
fame breeds
He
fame.
was
Yes.
already Brandon
He was
Sanderson.
already Brandon Sanderson. He already had a staff of like 25 people working for him and a wife who takes care of his children. And this is not to denigrate Brandon, who's a hardworking writer. He's a machine.
100%.
He outputs thousands of words every single day. It's like he sweats them. I don't know. It's amazing. It blows my mind,
I know.
honestly.
That's wild.
But it's a totally different situation.
Oh,
Like I think even
someone
if
in
you're
chat
supposed to
says academic nonfiction.
Oh yeah, you're making no money off that. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, having gone to the extensive, let me
That's a
show
different
you my
thing.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's a different thing.
Totally different thing. Because I mean, like, I actually I have a book that's in a second edition in an academic press, but that's because they are not principally marketing. That's I don't know. Maybe that's gotten
Yeah.
a few hundred readers, maybe like that. That's marketed for a different reason. That's because they're using that for credibility. You're using it for other scholars to cite you. That's the key. If you can get cited, if you have a scholar who's like so and so Wilson said this about whatever, then you've arrived from the point of view as an academic. But it's such a much more like limited field.
There is a group of people who, and this is where we start getting into conversations, and this is a whole other thing that we're not going to do now, but conversations about if you're submitting to a place that has submission fees, it's bad. Don't do it. Money should always flow towards the writer. If you're not getting paid a certain amount of money, you probably shouldn't submit there because money should always flow towards the writer. Don't take less. But a lot of what happens is that you have people in academia who have to publish. It's publish or perish. And so
Mm-hmm.
these are the people who are submitting potentially in this lit fic,
Science.
sphere, science.
Yeah.
We're not even getting into that where you have to pay all these fees and then you pay them to host your article or whatever. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Speaking of stuff you tell your therapist that they're just like, that's not how anything could work.
That's
or
not how
should work.
anything
And
works. I'm like, it is.
It's
No,
how
it's-
that
it's-
works.
it's-
Yeah.
it's
But it's a
true.
totally different world than
Mhm. Different
genre
world.
publishing, which tends to be at least much more devoted to filthy lucre, thankfully, than academic publishing.
It's something different. And I mean, Clemson University Press is the one that did, my academic work. And like, I'm a big fan of Clemson and they did really wonderful work with it, but I'm under no illusions, right, as to sort of how broad their outside the academic audience, would be. But that it was being done for a different purpose. When I got tenure back in 2009, I had published my first novel by then, and they were like, "That's nice," but I think what they really cared about is that I had published monographs and essays,
Yeah.
and I had good teaching evaluations. Like that was what they were focusing on, right? More than
Yeah,
anything
it's a
else.
different ecosystem.
Different
It's a different
ecosystem.
ecosystem.
So TomTom says, I believe is the next one up, says, how hard is it in your opinion to get something published when the genre changes? Kind of like in the movie From Dusk Till Dawn, where the story changes from a road movie into an undead slugfest. So I think you're talking there about if you have what we used to call like slipstream, like where genres where you can't easily classify the genre
Yeah.
or it shifts over.
Like a cross
how-
genre sort of.
Yeah. I do want to say that in a lot of cases, so much of that turns out to be Monday morning quarterbacking to me. Like everyone's
Yeah.
like, you ought to keep it this way until it happens. And then it's like, what was great was that they did different things in that one book.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that's the spaghetti sticking at the wall thing Valerie was saying. But what do we think about that? About like when you have something that doesn't, that is a sort of mix combo.
That's like all
fantasy-
my books.
Yeah.
That's my entire career.
That's
I don't
the
know.
Premee
That's
verse.
13.
Is that
That's
the-
13 books so far. Yeah. I think the most egregious example, of course, was last year with the book that nobody heard about or read, "The Rider of the Ride, the Rich Man's Wife," which came out from PS Publishing, which was sort of billed as a fantasy Wild West, and it's not.
Western.
It's a post-apocalyptic weird Western.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you
it's,
finished off the genre is what you're saying. Like that was
Way to go,
Yeah.
Premee.
You nice
So
job.
I killed the genre.
Tim
I don't
Power
know.
started it, and you just
You
took
Yeah,
it down.
I just
Oh, my
I trampled it. I trampled it
Millennials
into the
just-
ground like a horse.
Screw you,
We've
Tim
killed
Powers.
we've killed diamonds, we've killed
Some kind of horse.
Applebee's.
Because I actually don't know enough about horses to use them a lot here. So in this book, you'll notice that people are walking around a lot. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I think editors are so much more open to that. I've never encountered a single editor who was like, "No, don't put your peanut butter in the chocolate. Readers won't like that." I mean, how do people think Vajra Chandrasekhara is making a living? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
no,
it.
everybody loves it. Just change the genre wherever, and readers
Yeah.
would be like, "Oh, lovely, chocolate, peanut butter."
Yeah, I think genuinely what a lot of people are, what a lot of readers. Sorry, I can't generalize. I'm going to walk that back. That's a terrible generalization I was about to make. There are readers who want the same, sort of like they want the same plot beats, they want the same cookie cutter sort of, and more power to them, right? But then there are also readers who want something that is weird, which is and weird can mean a lot of things. And I think that's Premee. A lot of what you do really well is the blending of stuff that is maybe a little unexpected and is going to catch people unawares. And I think there's a huge market for that too. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down.
I don't, but
Sorry, go ahead. Was that?
I said I don't because otherwise they'd be buying my books.
Fair
but
point.
I think you're right about the
But
first
we
thing too,
will
because
come
when
to
you,
that.
when you look at like the New York Times bestseller list or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like book 13 in the series, book 17 in the blah blah blah. People
That's a
want
good
to. A lot of people, again, not to generalize, a lot of people want to read the same book again and again. That's what they like.
Yeah, there's a reason why
and they're-
Grey's Anatomy is on season
And they're perfectly happy
35
with
or whatever.
it. They're like, "Oh my god, book 18," and they rush out and
Yeah.
they're millions and millions and millions, and they buy book 18. Whereas
true.
something weird like From Dusk Till Dawn really has to almost become a kind of a cult classic
Yeah.
for people to sort of appreciate it and for the word of mouth to spread, because if there's that sort of veering off from the movie that you thought it was, some people will get up and leave
Yeah.
because you surprised them and they didn't want to be surprised, and now they feel stupid, and nobody likes feeling stupid when they are consuming their art, so they'll just bail.
Yeah.
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 I do think that it is, and Premee has already sort of revealed the split in this question, is there is a difference between harder to sell to a publisher or an agent or what have you, and harder to sell to consumers.
Yeah.
And I think that that can be, because I will say that my genre straddling book, which is space fantasy, also my least successful book. So it is a question of going back to the marketing and the publicity people. How do they market it? Do they put the circle in the square hole? Can they make it work? Can they sell it to the booksellers and the libraries and the distribution networks versus selling it to consumers? Because ultimately, the publishing apparatus, especially at the higher, the big four level, they have this whole marketing thing. And if they want something to be successful, it will be successful because they will make it so.
Yes.
That is what they do. That is their job. And they have at least some understanding of what people want to read, and they are going to use that to play the fiddle, they're going to use that to pull the strings. But ultimately it's are they on your side? And in a way they always are, because they don't want to have failures. Like they're not buying books for them to fail. That's just not how anybody wants this to be. The editors don't want that. The accounting people don't want that. The guy collecting the multi-million-dollar paycheck at the very top doesn't want that. Nobody does. But there is that split. There is that difference between, can you tell to an editor who is going to be like, oh, this is really cool and I love it, versus can that editor then sell it to the acquisitions team? Can the acquisitions people and, get the marketing people on board to figure out how they're going to market it, who they're going to market it to, how much money they're going to put behind it? Are they going to make this a bestseller or not? How are they going to approach it?
Yeah.
And I do think genre splits like that are harder to get that kind of leverage behind, I guess. But that said, it also comes back to, what does success look like to you as the author? What do you want out of it? What is your goal? Because will you be able to find a publisher who wants it? Probably, yeah. But then what? What is your ideal scenario there?
Yeah.
Right.
Multi-million-dollar movie deals someday? I don't know.
And how does that shift over time, right? Like I was thinking about this, Jonathan Green, I hadn't heard this number. Do you know that The Fault in Our Stars sold 20 million copies? He sold so many copies of his book, and then it was made into a film, that I was watching an interview with him, and he was basically like, it meant that I could write whatever I wanted then.
Yeah.
Because like none of it made a difference, because I had just had this like overwhelming. And in fairness, Jonathan Green is a good writer. Like I mean, he's legit. He knows what he's doing, and he does speak specifically. I think he's very good in particular in YA. He's very good at speaking to a particular demographic in a good way. But my God, and there's a time when you look around and you go, like, I think consumers, there are readers out there who want this, but yeah, navigating between agent editor, and then the reader that you get to, that's a whole other thing. We have a Rising Tides appearance. This person may be actually writing directly from the guest room downstairs, because Brandon is currently staying with me. But
is he nice?
Yeah, Brandon O'Brien is with me at the moment because he was down in PAX Unplugged this past weekend demoing Grey
cool.
Shade, the tabletop role-playing game, which is coming out soon based on my world. So Brandon asks, what do you recommend to writers outside of the region who feel like they're struggling for visibility and access in North American spaces? For example, Trinidad. No, I'm just kidding. Any of these spaces. What do we recommend to writers outside the region? I mean, I don't know, man. We're trying to figure out how to figure stuff out inside the region. Like I don't freaking know how to tell people.
I also love the idea that just for a split second, I was like, how did Brandon like sneak into your basement?
I have a direct link via monorail from Trini all the way.
No, I totally hear him though, because again, last year I was in Trinidad and Tobago for the Bocas Lit Fest, and that question came up a lot. Talking to Brandon, talking to Rhonda Garcia, talking to other authors who were down there, even authors who had been published with like American presses were like, how do you like hold up the sign that says, hey, I have a book, when
Yeah.
you can't do things necessarily like go to cons or like have that local writing community or attend events or go on book tour. I mean, not that necessarily everybody's being offered a book tour, but like if you are in another place, how does that work? I don't know how Rhonda navigated it. A lot of it seems to be online, but again, online you're competing for a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's the hot dog stand thing. I really want a hot dog now.
And again,
Yeah, it's the hot
are
dog stand.
you trying to sell your hot dogs to other hot dog stand owners? Like, it's not going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly
Exactly.
And like how do you convince people that there is something like unusual about your hot dog?
Yeah.
Or like, can you? Will they believe you? Why should they believe you? They've never had one of your hot dogs. So I don't know. It's I should have
Yeah.
eaten dinner before this.
Too much
Maybe a
of the
hot dog.
Maybe a hot dog.
Although I did see before we came on for this a couple hours ago, I did see someone was posting about this. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I can't give credit for the name. That that they had been speaking to independent booksellers, bookstores, and they had said the way that you know that a book should be reordered, the number of copies of a book that you have to sell for them to reorder it. Did you see this? Yeah, 3.
saw it.
Yeah, I saw it. Three copies.
So on the I mean, that's got to be a little hopeful, right? Like, I mean, it seems. I mean, I don't know whether to be horrified, like that means that that's a number that most don't clear, or whether to be like, okay, like I think I could sell 3 hot dogs, like maybe I could eat 2 hot dogs myself.
I think
I don't
weirdly
know.
though, it's still kind of a high bar to clear though. I mean, they only
Yeah.
have so much shelf space.
Yeah.
Are they going to have the whole wall of Dune books because they know they've got like the 5 weirdo Dune guys who are going to come in every month and check to see if there's a new
Yep.
Dune book and then they're going to buy it, and that's an assured income stream.
Yeah.
I always bring this up, but have you guys listened to the Publishing Rodeo episode where they do bring in the bookseller who is like,
No, I haven't
here
yet.
is how, really listen to it. It's
Okay.
it's fascinating, but like we have so many decisions to make. We only have so much physical space.
Yeah.
We know our audience. What are we going to put on the shelf, and how can somebody who just flump gives us the catalog and is like, hey, we want you to carry these 15 books from this publisher, like how are they can't carry all 15. How do they pick the one that they might carry from that publisher? And how is that decision going to be different from like another chain or another bookstore? And it's really all very individual. I do know one slightly weird thing that I saw in France, because a lot of things struck me as weird there because they're French. A lot of the publishers have their own bookstores. So my publisher, Éditions La Talente, they had 2. They have one in Nantes and they have one in Paris. And all they carry are the books they publish. And they're a sci-fi fantasy horror publisher, so that's all they've got in there. And I thought that was so cool. Like, the reason we tend to talk about bookstores that are devoted to sci-fi and fantasy, like Mysterious Galaxy or Baka Phoenix,
Baka Phoenix, yeah.
is because they're not that common.
Yeah.
Right? So, maybe one way of getting around that is to really kind of try to contact individual bookstores, but especially those ones that are focusing on your genre. Apparently Calgary is getting a new romance bookstore very, very soon.
Cool.
Only romance. Everybody is very, very excited because this is Calgary, where they are cold and icy and they only care about hydrocarbons.
Or another example.
Am I wrong? Brandon?
No,
I'm not wrong.
100% correct. That is
Yeah.
when somebody asks me to describe Calgary, those are exactly the words that I use.
Or if you can get to like if you do any game game crossover stuff, so
Yeah.
where, because you have in a lot of game stores their own Black Library, right, which has all of the like Warhammer stuff, or which is or Catalyst Game Labs, Jen is in chat, Catalyst Game Labs, that's doing a lot of their own Shadowrun and BattleTech fiction, and therefore get carried. Sometimes I've seen them. The game store that's not too far from me, Elm City Games in New Haven, has its own like separate area that is just for books or crossover books or books that are like they're not really source books. They really are more fictional than source book, So there's also
That's
some
cool.
of that. And then you can get a little bit more of that. Back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, Games Workshop as a game store was selling principally Games Workshop stuff. Like they weren't even a general game store. They were producing their own stuff. Now they're just all Warhammer all the time. But back in the day, that was a different thing. So bookstores doing that would be nice if you had that as well. What's the point of having all those publishers here if they're not going to take advantage of that? I mean, well, and the other thing too is that publishing is so much based on star system. There's a lot of things with publishing that are strange and that are partially legacy based too, so they don't even necessarily make sense now. Don't get me started on returns, But anyway, so you see a section of Warhammer, but nothing for BattleTech, especially in fiction. Yeah, that's true.
So I want to go back to Brandon's question though, because I do think that just a few thoughts. That one thing I will note is talk to indie authors, friends, because they do have systems in place and ideas and knowledge. And there are so many things that trad pub authors can't control that indie authors can. And so things like, adjust your Amazon keywords. It's like, well, I can't. I don't have access to that. That's not something I can do. Just have your lead book be 99 cents, set it to perma cheap, and then and you're like, I don't have control over that. But depending on how indie you are, how responsive your publisher is, you can potentially do things like get into a story bundle. Story bundles can be really great for gaining new readers. You can do things like newsletter swaps, wherein, you and somebody else essentially kind of cross the streams and end up with each other's newsletter subscriber base. Newsletters, everyone will tell you, rule of thumb, that is the best way to sell stuff because people are likely to be sort of already opted in, so to speak. And so instead of screaming to the ether, you are screaming to, like Greg was saying earlier, a curated list of people who already are at least somewhat interested in you as a
Hot
person,
dog connoisseurs.
Hot dog connoisseurs,
particularly like your hot dog, the Slipstream hot dog.
You're not just like dropping hot dog coupons from a plane. You are mailing hot dog coupons directly to people who actually.
So
like
our new band is now going to be called the Slipstream Hot Dogs, right?
Slipstream
Oh
hot
yeah,
dog.
100%.
Yeah.
Hot dog, I love the idea. No, curated hot dogs really is what they are. And
our T-shirts are going to be so great.
But I do absolutely co-sign on the indie stuff too. Again, Marie Bilodeau was the one who really helped me with a lot of suggestions about things that then I could, Athos did some of that anyway. I've worked with other small presses who are in the same way. I've been thinking myself a little bit about pitching these things in a certain way. So yeah, totally. Like understanding what actually works and when to sell them. Yes. Indie authors tend to be much more responsive to the market because they have to be, I guess. And they're just much less. It's not like turning, the cruise ship slowly in a certain direction, which is what the big publishers sometimes feel like. So that might be one suggestion.
They also have the advantage of being able to see if something works.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
sure. Yeah.
they can do the experiment,
Access to stats.
get the data, access to stats. Whereas for me, it's like, well, I don't know, I skeeted about the audiobook. Will I know if that made the needle move at all? Yeah, in maybe 10 months.
Yeah.
Like,
with that royalty statement.
everything is so delayed. Although I will say, behind the scenes stuff, one of the publishers that I'm working with now, i.e. one of the ones that said, please send in your book and don't die in the next couple of weeks, they actually have an author dashboard. So authors that publish with them actually can see in practically real time, I think there's about a 48-hour delay, their sales. So it's not like you're waiting 6 or 10 months or whatever to get your royalty report in a PDF. This is a whole programmed backend, and I have never had access to that before, and I'm kind of freaking out a little bit.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, is this success? Does this mean something, or are the gods going to hit me with lightning for even talking about it? Oh,
Or
God,
is this
the
just a
hubris.
new way to freak yourself out? It's
Yeah.
just
Actually, I think it
another
might be
thing.
that.
Yeah, this is
It
the
might
new
just be
version
another
of
way.
going on Goodreads every day.
They're like,
Yeah.
here you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Have some anxiety. Thanks,
Don't
guys.
do it.
I
Don't go
I
on
never look at my own
Goodreads.
author back end. It's one of those things like the classic. I don't read reviews. I don't look at my author back end.
No, why would
I
do
don't look at Goodreads.
Sure you
Although
don't.
I did sign up because a couple of years ago, because a friend told me if you don't, somebody might sign up there and pretend to be you, and I was
That's
like,
why I
I've
did that.
never heard of that happening. Does that happen?
I don't want to risk it, really.
Not especially not
that's
now
good.
that people are impersonating random authors and sending
Oh my
out
God.
marketing solicitations
Yeah,
and stuff.
that's
What's wrong with people?
Let's
What
don't.
is wrong with people?
But
Why would they do this to us? Do authors not have enough problems?
I know. Yeah, Jane Smiley contacted me on Twitter before I left that godforsaken place, and I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." No, you didn't contact me at all. No, you didn't do that. Like, I love
I think
your
the best
work.
is when they
I know.
accidentally pick like a dead author or something. You're like, I'm pretty sure he died last year. They're
That's
like,
right.
no, but I would like to edit your book. Give
Your
me
book is so good. I have
$500.
come back from the dead.
Your corpse is going to edit the book.
it was
yes?
actually
Like-
death becomes her situation.
Actually, I
I
faked my own death so that I could help more writers like
Faked
you.
my own
I
death.
don't know, like. Anyways, the grifters are going to grift, and some of them are not very on top of things. I don't know.
Well, we are at the little past the 2 hour mark, folks. So we should. I think the questions are there. This has been really, really enjoyable, though, for me to listen to amazing people talking about a lot of really fascinating topics relating to writing. Before we close up shop, any last sort of pithy words of wisdom or things to think about for either the aspiring writer or for the reader who's like, now that I've heard these people, where do I get all of their work and buy 3 books from every bookstore so that they get restocked? Like, first order them, get 3 of them in, then buy all 3 of them to do that. I guess I'll work in reverse order. So I guess I finished with Premee, so I guess I'll start with Premee. Premee, thank you. Like, any words of wisdom and or where do you want people to go get your stuff as soon as possible?
I don't know if I have any words of wisdom. Thanks so much for inviting me. This was so interesting. I actually learned a lot, I feel. And I don't think that it was Canadian versus American authors. I think it was Canadian X American authors. And the X is very affectionate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I for sure would love if people did check out the audiobook version of The Butcher of the Forest, which just came out today from Tantor Media and can be picked up on Libro.fm, as well as it looks like several other audiobook sites, because I'm very, very excited about that, because it's very, very new. And I'm big on novelty. And my website is in the process of being refoobled, but it's just PremeeMohamed.com. And I'm on Blue Sky under the same handle. And that is where I hang out a lot. And thanks everybody in chat for showing up.
And I have just put a link to said audiobook in Twitch, and I'm doing the same thing in YouTube.
Thank you.
So go check those out. Thank you, Premee. It's really, as always, a pleasure. Okay, Brandon, as the other Canadian representative, I was thinking, what's that meme of the hand clasp thing? You know what I mean? Like the
from Predator,
the
yeah.
side of that,
Predator.
right? The meme, yeah,
Predator.
exactly. So any last words of wisdom, and where do you want people to go? What thing do you want them to check out of yours?
What thing? I mean, I don't know how pithy it is, but I think kind of it goes with the whole theme of the fact that this was like, Canadian X American, not Canadian versus American. Is I think probably more than ever in my lifetime. Make sure you're checking in with your people, especially if they are across the border from you. Like, times are tough, and I think if we can do a little bit more to, just give people a shout and just be like, hey, how's it going? I think that's good for everybody. And so it was lovely to sit and just shoot. I always like, this energizes me sitting around and shooting the shit with my peers. So this is an absolute blast. As I mentioned, the most recent thing is Cast Off, which finishes off my aspects of Ailda duology. It is available in whatever your mass.
Just put a direct link to
purchasing.
the publisher in both places. Just for,
Beautiful.
easy.
That's great. And then for me, generally, I'm at brandoncrilly.com. I've got a couple of social media platforms just for announcements, but I'm not really on there. And if you like games, I've got game stuff out there too on Drive-Thru-RPG, and I'm going to get my itch going hopefully in the new year. So you can check that stuff out too. And thanks for coming. This was great.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. This is cool. Valerie, my American compatriot in this case, although as we said, it was really just everyone hanging out together. I agree. In that style. So yeah, any last bits of wisdom, and again, anything that you want people to, where do you want people to go get, I don't know, like get Which You Would or pre-order or prepare for things, or what thing do you want to tell them about next?
Yeah, so I think the sage advice that I've been dispensing lately is um, write for your lovers, not your haters.
Mm.
Mm,
Because ultimately, whether you're successful or not, the thing that you can most control is what you write, how much you write, and how much you have you derive any kind of pleasure, catharsis, satisfaction, whatever from the process rather than the product. And I think that that is sort of where we have to be now, because given how commercial success is something that is well beyond your control in any form or fashion, aside from doing the work and persevering. Um, I forget who said it, might have been Scott Lynch, but like, don't write from a defensive crouch. Just
Mm.
write for your lovers, not your haters. Whether people love it or not in the end, you should love it first, I think. Um, and don't worry about so much about what they're gonna think, because they'll come people some people will love it, some people will not love it. Worry less about the ones who won't. They're not who you're writing for. Um, I you can find me at valerievaldes.com, and I've got this new book under my pen name, Leah Amador, if you like fantasy rom-coms, um, reality TV and magic. That's a good one. But I'll also shout out Where Peace is Lost, which is definitely my worst selling book, but my best reviewed and best rated one. So if you like Star Wars and uh, I don't know, fun road trip stuff, that's the book for you.
good stuff. Thank you, Valerie. And for those of you who are watching in chat, really enjoyed this conversation a lot. So thank you for being here for all of that. If you are interested in me and you have never come to, you're like, oh, who's this Greg guy who does this? I hope to do more of these conversations over the next few months and years based on discussions that we just had about like it's important to do more of this, and I agree. So hopefully we'll have a chance to do more of that. My YouTube channel that you can access through here if you're watching on Twitch, !ArvTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you don't need to access the channel because you're already on it. But that I have a series of things called Greg Talks Writing, where I talk about different writing stuff. And as I say, the latest thing is the Grey Assassin trilogy, Grey Shade, Renegade, and Heretic, and the Grey Shade tabletop role-playing game from a certain Brandon O'Brien designer and from Alligator Alley Entertainment. You can pre-order that now. That should be out soon. And be on the lookout for Renegade, the second book in the series. The audiobook of that, Trent Sparks doing the narration, should be out imminently within the next week or two at most, because it's all done and ready to go. So but yeah, Brandon, he's in my basement, O'Brien. I listen, okay. This is all part of the plan, and he's perfectly capable of independent movement, and all that.
He's also Brandon Prime. Let us not forget that
He
he
is
is the
Brandon
best
Prime. That's true. That's very
Brandon
true.
that
But this was great. Everyone in chat and in YouTube, thank you all so much for being here as well. Could we get some love for the amazing and awesome group of Valerie Valdes, Brandon Crilly, and Premee Mohamed? Authors, thank you so much. And chat, I will see you folks on my channel back here Thursday night. Otherwise, if you're in the States, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And I'll see you folks down the line. But thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.